All right, man. Let's do a little cheers to start.
Cheers.
Start off. Welcome to the new studio, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And everyone else, welcome to the new studio.
Yeah. Welcome. I shouldn't be welcoming you. It's not.
Nah,
my,
you can
it's not my
welcome people.
space, but welcome.
Yeah, this is the new space. We're still moving in, obviously, but there's enough stuff here for us to do the podcast, I think. So
You could swing a fair few cats in here, that's for sure.
yeah, it's gonna be sick when it's done. I'm sure you guys will all see, footage and videos and photos and everything of the space as it comes together. But for now, you're just gonna see this. We're only doing one camera today. The second one we'll get set up and get it all sorted. So, and we'll actually, I think we're actually going to make the space a bit cool, like behind the couch. I'm going to get a beer with thing and maybe even some kind of thing I can have the guest name on and stuff.
Or green screen it.
Yeah, that's an option too. There's a lot more editing.
Whatever you want.
More editing though.
Dries up until like 3 a.m, bloody green screen.
I can just put a logo up there actually, so that could be cool. But welcome everyone. Art Supplies.
Thank you.
Jordan,
yes.
He's been on before. I think it was episode 6, did we say before?
I think it was episode 6.
It's about episode 6.
Yeah.
So right near the beginning, you're on the show. And we've also done This Is Not News during COVID, which was over Zoom. A little bit different to the normal one. But that was a really fun one as well. I thought, what better guests to have in than yourself?
Thank you.
We talk a lot.
We're always talking. So,
we're working on some music together as well, and I thought I'd just get you in, see what you're up to, and have you on the show. So how you been?
I've been good, thank you. I've been really good. Busy.
Busy doing what? Because it's COVID. Everyone knows that some people don't have a lot on. A lot of people are doing heaps.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm always keeping busy generally. So like COVID or no COVID, I'm like the type of person that's like, I can't just sit there and watch TV. Like everyone asks me, what TV shows are you into? I don't watch TV. So I'm always like, trying to do something, learn something new, whatever. A lot of the time it's music related. So obviously we all have our day jobs, trying to keep up with the bills and stuff. But music related, so like outside of working, been trying to do a lot of tutorial stuff, trying to help.
As in create tutorials or what?
Yeah, both create. So since the start of COVID, it gave me a lot more time and a lot of a perspective shift on kind of where I wanted to take things and things that I enjoyed doing more so. Like, I think I found that I'm really creative in terms of just coming up with lots of ideas. So just finding avenues to put those ideas and just keep creating and keep being happy with that.
Yep.
And not really caring sort of where it went. It was more just doing it for the fun of creativity.
Yeah.
So then I sort of switched around and said, instead of going, hey guys, come check out my Instagram, my new song, it's all about me. I'm going, I need to start telling people a little bit or giving back or trying to do something that's not only going to help me by talking about it and interest me by talking about it, but giving back to the people that I needed when I was starting. And when I'm like, I need somebody to come and help me or like just post some stuff or like a tip every now and then to follow is just, I think that's really important. So apart from doing that, I dived into that. I've also dived in pretty hard into like side project, back doing stuff with more live music in a band setting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the band.
Yeah,
we've got to talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I'll postpone that sort of chat. But in terms of like my own art supplies stuff, keeping up the producing, I've got a few records that are on hold due to COVID. That I've actually got one coming out December 10th. Maybe I shouldn't be announcing that.
Maybe coming out.
Yeah, may or may not be coming out next month. And then a couple of other ones which I've been waiting for. A lot of people have been waiting for, going, when's this coming out, including me. But apart from that, helping other people in terms of like lessons and things, like picking up a fair few lessons.
Teaching then,
Yeah, I've got a couple of kids that I teach production.
So young
Yeah,
kids?
like 12 and like.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like young.
And so is that like in person or is that something?
Yeah. So I've picked that up.
So have you got a blue card then?
Yes, I do.
Surely you would with your work that you do.
You put me on the spot, but yes, I do. Now it seems like I don't have one. I definitely have one.
Because I know you do, you do the disability work and stuff. So I would assume you would have to have one for working with kids.
I'm fully covered, guys.
Same. I've got one too. And Johnny has one too. We could have kids at the studio. Probably won't, but but we're all covered.
We're setting up kids production classes next week.
Holidays. Hey, there's an idea.
That's an
Holiday
idea.
production
Watch this
classes.
space. Yeah, because it's now like becoming such a big thing for young kids and like
Yeah.
people starting out. Like you can see Martin Garrix on, being a DJ, whatever. Everyone wants to be a DJ now. It's all over socials. So there's kids that are 12 years old that got setups and they can learn, they can start things early and then get into it. So they're keen.
Yeah.
They want to play dance music. I'm like, you got 6 years before you're entering anywhere where you can play this.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
Blue Light Disco or something?
okay, yeah. There's a few.
That'd be
There's a
all
few,
right.
yeah.
I know what you mean.
Light,
Before
yeah.
you can, like that's just Blue Light Disco is what.
There's not much outlet. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's like, these kids, like, you have a shorter attention span when you're a kid. Like, you kind of put a little bit of effort into something, but you're not getting much return for it. Like, especially with DJing and production.
Production
like
even more.
It's a long journey, and so it's kind of trying to keep these kids interested.
Yeah. So is that challenging?
learning. Yeah.
Like holding their attention when you're teaching them, because production's quite technical.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's all about making it fun.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like doing it, because it keeps me in the mindset of doing things for fun and being creative about it.
Yeah.
And not going, I've got to make a specific, banger or whatever.
Yeah.
You've got this idea in your head you got to stick to. It's better to have that, like, sort of boundless creativity when you're a kid. You just kind of whatever. And we'd take samples from like his dog and then, like change it into something and then sample other things. And so, it's rewarding, it's challenging, but at the same time, it's like, I wish I was 12 years old and getting production
You were
lessons.
the kid in the lesson.
I know. It's like, what? Why did I start so late?
Yeah. We all say that. 'Cause
Yeah.
when did you start again? Like, I know we've done the podcast and
Yeah, I didn't start
everything.
till like 23, 24.
Yeah. But DJing earlier?
After.
So you,
It's produced first.
okay, so you started at 23,
Yeah.
producing.
Yes.
Yeah. We've talked
Yes.
about this on the other podcast. I
Maybe
know,
we
but-
should go fact check
But
our own
that
stuff.
was like a year and a half ago, almost, that first one.
Yeah, it was.
So that
It
was ages ago.
So a lot's changed.
Yeah. What's happening with the album?
The album I took a nice creative break from. I actually started on a couple of the tracks again the other day, primarily because, and I'll tell you why. I had to learn a hard lesson in trying to do everything myself. Now, like, I don't know whether that's just me or whatever, but I got into my head. I was like, nah, I want to do everything myself on this record.
Yeah.
And like start to finish, ideas, recording, vocals, everything.
Yep.
But then I'm sort of like, during the process, came to the conclusion that doing it that way is more selfish. You've got to do it for the music, the end result of the piece of music, and let the piece of music stand on its own and do what it needs to do.
Yep.
Now, I'm good at my rhythms. I'm good at some of my chords and things like that. I know I can do that stuff. I can't sing for shit.
Oh, we've done some stuff before and you're not too bad.
Okay, I may or may not have sung on some records, but like in terms of the stuff that I really want, that's like a standout
You want
vocal
that next
feature.
level, yeah.
You want someone to really like bring their 10 cents to it and like and do what they do best.
Yeah.
And I think allowing the record to breathe and allowing it to flourish in whatever kind of way it needs to go is better than like limiting it to just me and putting the pressure on myself and the like, like people talk about writer's block and like it puts that kind of pressure on. It's like, you had to come up with the ideas. Now it's all on you. And it's like, since working with other people, working with like yourself and stuff, like it's better to have that bouncing of creativity and then have that moment where you go, okay, my idea might not be as good in this thing. And if I decide to work with someone else or let someone do their part, it can take it to the next level. And that's where, the record's going to have what it needs and justify what it actually is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that's the process of taking with the album. So now I'm revisiting the tracks that I'm not convinced on certain parts of and then doubling down on the parts that I do like.
Yeah.
And then like freeze and flatten syndrome. Like these projects are like 100 bloody tracks and then my CPU
'Cause you've been
is
working on them
100%.
for a long time
I know,
too.
my CPU is like, it's a time where you just need to go, render that out to audio and leave it alone
Yeah.
and stop touching it. Like it's that stage.
Yeah.
So I promise you I'm going to put this thing out.
Yeah.
I've just like honestly just been having fun with moving between my different creative aspects and having no pressure on myself to release it.
Yeah.
Has been the best thing.
Yeah.
So
I think albums are such a big thing to undertake. Like, you know, like I took to Odd Mob, for example, same thing. He's been working on his album for ages as well. And, you know, you have breaks and things like that. And he's spoken about that. But it's a big thing to do. Like, it's a lot of work. And especially if you're trying to do it all yourself, like you said, you know, that's something that can be pretty challenging. So I don't envy you. I don't envy you.
Well, taking it on was more so just something that I've always wanted to do anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do an album too.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of has that like,
Yeah.
oh, I'd love to write an album. Then you got to think about, you know, from start to finish of the album, it's got to tell the same story.
Yeah.
And I would write something and I'm like, that's sick. And then something else would go and it's like, yeah, that's a cool track 2 or 3. And it sort of like tells a bit of a story and it keeps progressing. And then I'd write something else and be like, yeah, that doesn't fit.
That's not at
or
all,
like whatever. But then, you know, for example, Dioro's album from a few years ago, he did one that was like every single track was really different. And I really liked that. So again, there's no bounds, but I kind of really want to focus on making sure it's authentic from start to finish.
Yep.
Has that sort of similar sound or vibe throughout. So you go like, that's a complete album and story.
Yeah, it's one thing, one body of work.
And
like you said, it tells a story. Is there a name for this album? I don't think I've ever asked.
No.
Yeah, I don't have a name yet. No.
No, it's probably going to be untitled album.
You can't do that. That's the Dead Mouse. He's already done.
Oh
that.
yeah, it is. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Or unknown album. Untitled.
Nah,
I can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's call it like.
He's got a lot of albums, so.
Yeah, the longest album ever taken to make. That's what I call it.
Your one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there's been people who've taken way longer though.
Yeah, true. It's like you can write things over like massive times in your life and changes and, you know, different inspirations and stuff. So yeah, big undertaking.
Yeah. So the album's still coming. So what about the band? Tell everyone about the band because I've, you know, we've spoken a little bit about it and I've seen, you know, there's been times where you've come and we've worked on it and you're like, oh, I'm going to go into the band, or you're coming back from working with the band.
So I've dedicated a lot of time to this, and like I'll take you back pre say even like grade 12. Right?
To high school.
Yeah. So from an early age, I was drumming. It was always my first instrument. I was lucky enough to be involved in many, many bands, both jazz, blues, funk, Latin, and then like some rock bands and stuff, orchestras, all that kind of thing. Eventually moved into doing like drumline work. Managed to go to China for the Olympics in 2008. That was awesome.
You didn't know that drumming was in the Olympics?
Yes. I was. Well, it was the Olympic.
What were you doing?
I was the Olympic band or part of this band.
Oh,
and
okay.
They brought people from all over the world together to play, and
that's sick, man.
It was really cool. Got to play on Great Wall of China, all this kind of stuff. Some really nice, incredible memories. But doing that experience got me like really good at my chops at playing drums. And then I was really into sort of like the metal scene and like, believe it or not, like a lot of people go, what the, you? Like,
yeah, because you've got the,
I'm like real laid back and not very angry. But like metal was really like big for me, especially like, you know, late teens and stuff. You go through that stage of being a bit kind of like worried, society pressures, and you kind of get that angst and anger, and it's like it's a good thing. And being a drummer, metal is very rhythm heavy, very that kind of thing. So big fan of people like Bring Me the Horizon, Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet for My Valentine, Parkway Drive, all these types of people. And I sort of, once I'd finished school, I kind of didn't have an outlet for that. Like, you don't have any mates, or I didn't have any people that we could just jam and that were into the same stuff. And like, for me at the time, I wasn't really big on putting myself out there and saying, hey, I want to be in a band, like come and just meet random people. Like I found that quite hard. So I generally just moved into, okay, what can I do on my own?
Yeah.
And that's where I moved into electronic music production. Yeah. And then writing the parts and sort of going from there and, you know, growing up, getting into clubbing, da 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 da.
So what did you do in this period? You were talking about where you didn't know anyone when you finished school, to 23 when you started producing. That's 5 years' time. That's quite a bit of time in there.
Yeah.
What were you doing then? Because I know you studied.
Yeah, so I was gigging with drums for the
Okay.
first few years after school.
So you were still drumming in bands
drumming
and
in
stuff,
bands, yeah. So mostly like corporate functions.
Okay, yep. So it wasn't
jazz,
necessarily
quartet
like
stuff.
the
Wasn't-
stuff you wanted to play. It was you
Exactly,
just doing
exactly.
it because
money.
it was a thing.
There's
Yeah,
money,
it was
and
a
I
money
could get
thing.
paid as a session drummer, so it was good. And I was playing all over, different Christmas parties and dinner music and da 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 in the background, and just take my money and get out. So that was cool. But then I just started going out, going to festivals, going like, hang on, like this is really cool. And then
There's lots of drums in this stuff too.
yeah, exactly. And I can get my hi-hats going, So yeah, that's kind of what led me into dance music. And a friend of mine showed me a demo version, I think, of Ableton at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, sick. You can start putting some stuff together. And I'd played around a bit in Pro Tools before. So it's kind of the natural progression to move into that.
Yeah.
So it was good, man. I was just discovering myself at that age and, partying.
That's cool,
and
man.
getting
Like I
into it.
could imagine then, like you eventually maybe working on like a live show where you incorporate drumming into DJing. Like with a drum pad type thing that just trigger samples and all that. Because obviously you've got the technique and stuff to be able to play stuff in time.
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
think.
huge, man.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's always something that I've wanted to do.
It's just
kind
a
of
lot of
the Master Kutcher
organisation.
vibes, like where
Yeah.
you're drumming up there. It is, and like you see a lot of people that use the sample pads and the drumsticks and stuff, and it looks sick. I think part of the reason was one, just being worried about screwing up, having that nervousness, and
Isn't that part of it though?
But it is part of it, 100%, bro,
'Cause I mean,
100%.
you used to, I suppose, maybe because you maybe haven't done a lot of drumming until you've gotten back into the band. I'm not sure. Like, did you have a
not too
break
much.
then?
Yeah, had a big break.
Yeah.
I also snapped my foot in half, so that like got rid of like
That's never good.
my left. It's never cool.
It's never good.
So yeah, I had to retrain, and I still am retraining my left side. So
Yeah.
like that was a big kind of dampener on
How'd
it
you
as
do
well.
that to you? What'd you do?
I fell awkwardly and sort of like sat back on my
But
foot.
what
and
were you doing though?
playing futsal?
Ah,
Nothing stupid. I was
Yeah,
playing
all right.
futsal, being exercise.
yeah, that's a good cover story. I
It
like
is,
that
yeah.
one.
We'll
You
stick
went
with
drunk
that.
at a festival and
Yeah, we'll stick with the futsal story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like getting into retraining that and sort of playing again was hard to come back from. But yeah, certainly did take a bit of a break, and mainly because of the outlet thing. Like I didn't have a place to play, didn't have that group of mates to go and do it with, or that kind of thing.
So how did you get this band formed then? Who were the band members and how did it come together?
All right, so I don't want to spill too much of it because it's still early days, right?
Yeah,
But we play metal music, new metal. It's sort of it's pretty different, but it's bringing back the 90s vibe.
Yeah.
Like very much so. And
about
and like bit of rap, bit of sort of like hip hop vibes, bit of like funky vibes, but still core like of it is metal and like and rhythm and guitars and stuff. So we've been working on our first sort of album EP type thing, got sort of 7 or 8 tracks in the works. And one of the guys that I worked with on a recent record, Welcome to My Jungle, the rapper Bulldog.
Yep.
So he, a good friend of mine, and we're in the studio and just hanging out. He had started a band with his mate or mates at the time, and they were looking for, I think originally a bass player.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I'll jump in and play bass. Da 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 da. Like
Have you
me,
ever
I'm
played
just-
bass or?
I've got a bass. And
I've got a bass. You can play bass.
Okay, yeah.
I got a guitar at home.
Can you
but
play
I'm
bass?
useless.
I've got one. So yeah. I
yeah,
can, like-
yeah. Johnny's got a clarinet at his
Yeah.
place. We don't know where it came from. He's got.
But he
his house
must
has
be
a
amazing
clarinet.
at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a bass and I have played bass, but I'm not a bass player. So it's one of these things that you have a guitar and you just,
Yeah, you have. Yeah,
muck around.
Muck around.
So he's seen it and he's like, oh, we need a bass player, da 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 da. And I was like, yeah, cool. Ended up the fact that I can't play bass and I can play drums a lot better.
Yeah.
And they needed a drummer at the time. So
So they need a drummer and a bass player. Or you just took the drummers. Did you kick someone out of the band? Is that what happened? You came in and were better than them? Is that what happened?
No, but there was band politics, and now I'm the drummer.
no.
Now I'm the drummer.
It's even worse. It wasn't even a skill thing.
No, it
They
wasn't.
just liked you more.
I don't know. I think so. But anyway, I'm the drummer, and
I'm the drummer.
I'm the drummer now, and now we have a new bass player, and it's coming together really well. It's actually been a lot of fun mixing live music and learning that side of things. Like Johnny, you know, obviously gets involved with it, and there's a few people I know that worked in live sound, but just the difference of tracking real instruments and tracking like sounds from scratch is way different to just pulling samples and like synths and stuff. And the way you mix it and the way you have to blend the sounds is really different. So I think that's actually really helped my mixing with other stuff, because then I'll come back and write something else and then be like, whoa, you know, like
what if I do this and use this technique? It's kind of like how they talk about learning other genres and stuff to
100%.
take techniques from that. It's the same thing with live then.
Yes, exactly. Cool. And like, you know, taking different elements, like, I don't know how much, you know, you listen to metal and stuff, but the new like Bring Me the Horizon stuff's very like EDM heavy. Like they've got a lot of electronic like stuff in there, and a lot of it's going into like hybrid drumming where you bring out the sample pads and everything as well as the acoustic kit. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, people have been using trigger samples for ages. So you know, you do your kick drum and it sends a little signal to the computer to trigger a nice
we've got a VST that does
thing.
that. Yeah. You can replace like drums. If someone's done like drums, you can just replace any of the samples basically.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So cool.
It's really cool. But it's also like, you know, it used to be real authentic. Like you just have live instruments and just record them as they sounded and then try and sort of beef them up a bit in the box. But like now,
you can totally replace it.
Yeah, and most of them are. Most of the songs that you hear on the radio are replaced or like
it's like better samples. Like why would you? Someone sat there and recorded and gone to all the effort with amazing microphones, the best placement.
That's it. Yeah.
Mixed it like, you know, or like processed it so it's this amazing sample. You know, you're never gonna do as well as that.
There's no point. Yeah. So it's like, you know, you just got to sort of move with it, and that's another thing with the album sort of concept is just moving with the times, like getting like out of like the old habits and the old ways of doing things, because stuff's moving so fast. You see sort of like old engineer, like this, it's like vinyl DJing is the only way to DJ. It's like, okay, like I understand.
Maybe 30 years ago.
30 years ago, it's a lot bloody harder, guaranteed.
It's way harder.
You know, well done. You're a much better mixer than I probably am at vinyl. But we don't use vinyl anymore. Yeah. Like some people do, and that's cool and that's awesome. That's their vibe. But wherever you go, the general standard is not vinyl. So you learn and you adapt and you change. And same with these plugins, and we were talking about like Isotope and RX8, like this new one where you can just isolate different parts of the tracks and just take stuff out. It's insane. Like, you know, and people would spend hours mixing this stuff a few years ago, and you just drop a plugin on it and the AI just goes da-da-da-da-da and
figures it
done.
out. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's mental.
Big movements.
Yeah, that's it, man. Well, that's cool that you've sort of got back into, I suppose it's something that was your original sort of passion in music to start with, you know?
Yeah, it's always been a passion, and I can't help myself but just go for things that I love and just keep following stuff. So it's super nice to be back playing live music and jamming with like people. It's the same that you would get in a back-to-back set, in the way that you have a sort of connection with somebody and you bounce off their vibe, their flavor, and work with them to build something. Yeah. And it's slightly different, but, you know, same kind of concept.
I think I need to get back into playing trumpet, because, you know, I grew up playing trumpet, so I should probably get back into
that. We need some guest appearances.
I just need some more time, though. I need so much more practice. Like, I was pretty good when I stopped, but that was like over 10 years ago, and I haven't played since, so...
That's another thing that I've noticed is, like, because everything is electronic and you can get some amazing sounds and samples. Yeah. People aren't learning instruments anymore. Yeah. You drop the MIDI pack and you drop that on, and it's like, you don't even need to be able to play the piano or like
It'd be handy though if I could.
That's a good point, though.
Yeah,
that's a good
would
point.
be very handy.
If you know your music theory, you can take stuff to the next level. If you know your way, how to play an instrument, or the articulation about how something's meant to be played, like it's all good hitting notes, but it's like, how do you want it articulated? How do you want it phrased? How do you want
There's a lot more to it.
the message and the
And
whole
you learn a lot
point.
more of that in live music because you actually have to do it live.
Exactly.
It's not like you can sit there and change the velocity later on and change the swing and change where the notes hit. You've got to be able to learn to do it live in the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you said, feed off someone else to go, oh, they're playing like this now. I've got to play like this.
Yeah, it's that human feel, human connection, and I think jazz really taught me that.
Love jazz,
Like-
trumpet. I mean, like exactly,
Jazz,
yeah.
big band, like that's so much fun, and having that like expression. They say music's a language. Like it's you listen to a jazz band play or a jazz quartet or something, and then you see someone solo like over these jazz
Solos
stuff,
is so great. Yeah,
and if they know it, like I'm gonna say if they know what they're doing, but generally they don't know what they're doing. It's just kind of free flowing, and you just kind of just let it come out, and that like produces moments of magic. Stuff that's slightly on the beat, slightly off the beat, a little bit funk, different, whatever, and that is what makes that's what's missing in a lot of, including a lot of my music stuff that I'm learning to bring back into my stuff. Is that real human feel, that real just raw vibe almost. Less polished, because everything sounds so polished now. Too
that's
polished.
it. I think that's why a lot of people are enjoying making lo-fi, and I've heard so many people in COVID and in recent times. It's just like lo-fi is so fun to make because you don't have to sit there and make it sound perfect and awesome. You can just like put a track together in a day or half a day, and you're like, it's done. Because you know what I mean?
Lo-fi,
Like,
it
it's lo-fi. It doesn't
yeah.
have to. You don't have to make the bass like fucking hitting real heavy or anything.
Yeah, that's really true. It's kind of given everybody that reflective thing. Well, this whole time period has been super reflective for everybody.
And I think a lot of them have been saying that their lo-fi stuff's been doing way better than their other stuff because like at the moment, no one's. Well, I mean, now things are coming back. Especially, we can dance now. It's past 4:00 on Tuesday for everyone who's here. So we can dance outside and that. But yeah, so I think a lot of people have been just listening to more music rather than actually, looking for stuff they can listen to in clubs, or you don't want to get too hyped up at home because you can't do anything.
In the kitchen, like all right.
I mean, you can at home,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just I think a lot of people have embraced that kind of music a lot more.
Yeah, it's because like, well, okay, I'm not gonna say this is what it is, but Uncle Art Supplies here reckons.
You heard it first.
Yeah. No, I reckon like because of the fact that now, it's gonna sound like an old person, but you're not going out and just getting fucked up and just like forgetting everything. Like your music means a bit more. You're like it's a soundtrack to your life now. It's a bit more like, okay, what am I feeling today? What's gonna help my emotions? What's the soundtrack to my day today? Not just let's just pump some bangers and get into it and get on it. It's more like longevity, music that means something. Coming back to music, like that's why the Cranberry Juice guy, that song, like. I can't remember.
What song are you talking about? What's the Cranberry Juice guy song?
The Fleetwood Mac song.
Oh, okay.
And Dreams. And like, okay, apart from the fact that was a meme, but like, and that TikTok dude, but like songs that like me, it's a soundtrack to your life kind of thing. It wasn't just like a bad be-do. It's not like the same thing. It's a feeling thing, a road trip. Whatever, I don't know.
And it's interesting because like I found a lot of people when we sort of were coming out of that real lockdown in Queensland, which we've been super lucky here really. I think a lot of people when we could start going out, they were all saying, I didn't really miss the clubbing. I missed hanging out with mates and people like that. So when a lot of people were going out, the people I spoke to, they were kind of like, it didn't really matter that they couldn't dance for a bit because they were sort of like, that's not really what I missed the most.
Yeah.
I think now it is what people are missing because they're like, well, we get to go out and do things here. We've been able to do that for a little while.
And you miss it once it's taken away.
Yeah, and so now everyone's like, oh, now I want to dance, you know.
Yeah.
And we can now, so.
We can.
Well,
Hallelujah.
outside. Some clubs are going to like kill it. Some clubs are going to be like, oh,
yeah,
man,
I'll
we
hold
can't.
my judgment on all of those types of things. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. And finding the enjoyment in going out and stuff is the social aspect.
Yeah.
It's the connection over either social or the music or whatever it is for different people. But something that I found when I was playing shows regularly is that you don't have that enjoyment because either I was on my own or I didn't know people. Like, yes, that hour and a half on stage is sick, but like outside of that, like, what are you doing it for? What's your reasons? Why are you doing it? And
I think we spoke a bit about this in the first one. You said that it almost was like it lost a bit of
it killed it
meaning
for
you.
Yeah,
because it was like you were just doing it because
that's kind of what you did.
Motion.
Yeah, for sure. And as much, like, don't get me wrong, like, I really enjoyed, grateful for everything that I had.
Yeah.
But like, it woke me up really quickly to be like, yo, like, why did you start this? You know, like, why did you come into this? What's your reason for liking music and wanting to pursue music? And it's like, we'll do that. And that's kind of led me into this journey over the last year of starting to, you know, just be involved with the things that I like being involved with.
Yeah.
Helping others, you know, live music, sort of producing different records, creativity going a bit crazy. Like, that's just me.
I mean, you were doing hip hop and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I'm still writing hip hop. I actually
stuff?
rapped this morning. Like, that's
Yes!
how bad things are getting in
that.
coronavirus for me. I'm rapping now, so
Yeah.
my rap album drops next week.
What's your rap name?
I don't know.
You have to come Janitor Supplies.
Yeah, something like
Throw back to the old studio building frequencies. Janitor Supplies.
little paintbrush or something. I don't know.
Little paintbrush. Little painty.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think that's sort of something a lot of people in the industry have had to come to terms with during COVID. Is like, well, I'm not playing shows. Why did I get into this? Was it just to play shows, or was it more about
Or to look cool playing shows?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting to see some people really thrive in this time, and some people sort of just disappear. And maybe they are doing things in silence and hustling, which
too,
I hope they are.
Yeah.
But it's been quite interesting to see some people sort of just disappear a bit.
They sit and wait a bit.
Yeah.
They're sort of like going, oh, I'll just wait until things go back to normal, whatever.
Yeah. And then pick it up from there. But I don't know if things are going to go back to normal. It's going to be different.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No.
I don't think so. And that's the point. I think that's the point you're trying to make, is that if you are sitting there and just kind of going, oh, now what? Like, what I thought and what I was chasing and is now fallen away, and there's either no opportunities or things are different now, it's harder, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, reassess. Like you said, why are we doing it? What do you want out of it? What do you actually really want to do? And that'll help sort of direct, I reckon.
Yeah. I really sort of realized that a lot of people probably, didn't, when it all happened, they didn't really have a purpose anymore. You know, like people's purpose, maybe if they were just a DJ, was to go out and play gigs, and that was their identity and who they were.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they don't have that, and it's like, well, what's my purpose? And so I sort of tried to drill into a few people, like, figure out your thing. Like, now's the time. You've got time. Try new things. Paint a painting.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, like, you know, try new things and figure out something that you have a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, that's when you just start gaming and drinking and doing drugs and all that kind of stuff.
100%.
But if you've got something, a goal and a purpose, and this is what I'm aiming for, I think it's a lot easier to be motivated and things like that. And that's what I found anyway.
Yeah, well, you're a great example of it.
Well, because this time I doubled down. I started doing more shows. I started putting, things on because I was like, I need a purpose. And, whether that's just doing the podcast or maybe, inspiring other people to do things or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's why I doubled down, because I needed a purpose. It was, people would say, oh, you've done all this for everyone. It's like, well, yeah, but it was kind of also a little bit selfish in terms of I needed a purpose as well. It wasn't just about all you guys, like it was about me too, that I needed a purpose. And I think a lot of that was the giving back and helping other people, you know. Like you said, you enjoy helping other people.
Yeah, I find
I'm
that
the
really
same.
rewarding. Yeah, no, you're right. You're a hugely good example of that, and anybody that's seen what you've been doing can attest to that. It's more just like I see you in the same way that I'm looking at things in terms of just following what we enjoy doing and following that that drive, finding the passion that you've got and running with it wherever it may take you, without the judgment of failure, without the judgment of, oh, this person's going to think this. And, you know, like, I knew that you were going to ask me about the album, but I don't give a shit that it's
I know. I was going to give you shit about
like,
not give you shit, but like I want to know
and it's
what's
like,
going on with it, because I've heard a lot of it and it's great. So I want to see it finished. You know, like,
but that's partly my fault of going, oh, I'm writing an album, da 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 da. But it's like,
that's it. Yeah.
But that comes down to the pressure thing as well. Like if I'm saying, oh, I'm going to do an album, and then people are like, where's your album? I go, ooh, and just get all self-conscious. It's like, well, you know, you did that. Like, so if
it's coming from a place of love, though, you know that. I just want to see the album come out.
Yeah, no, but that's right. Like, but I don't worry anymore, and obviously you don't. And it's like, it shows when you just go hard with your passion and not care. It kind of, you lose that fear of what's going on.
Man, I'd be a nervous wreck if I was worried. I mean, I put one of these out a week. Like, you know, like I'd be like,
how does my hair look?
And to be honest, like I do still worry sometimes, you know, like.
But that's because you care.
Yeah. But it's like anyone, like I kind of want to tell everyone out there that, like, you know, me and you, we're just like everyone else. We do have those moments where we're like, is this good? Am I doing the right thing?
All the time.
Are people going to enjoy this? Like people think that you know, me doing this podcast and that it's just like every moment of the day I'm like, nah, like, you know, like I got this. Like I generally do, but I do have times where I'm like, oh, is this a good idea? Like, should I say that, or should I do this, or was that a good podcast, or, you know, like things like that. So just know that we do have those worries too. So hit the like and subscribe button. No, I'm just joking. Do whatever you want. But yeah, so I think you know, it's important to for people to know that, because I think people see people who are so confident and out there, and they think, oh, that's just who they are. It's like, no, and then they go, really.
I'm not like that, so I'm never gonna get da 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 da. Yeah, for sure.
But like you said, you were never someone to go out and say to people, oh, let's start a band or whatever. Whereas now, I'm sure you probably are not like that at all. Like you would go out and do that.
I would, and like I'm not scared about talking to people anymore. I still get nervous, and I still get nervous. You still think about stuff, like I'll get anxious without like consciously feeling anxious. My body will be anxious, like I'll be shaking, or like I'll be a bit kind of sweaty or whatever. And it's like, but then, you know, it's that reassuring self-talk, and like, you know, you can do it, and then you surprise yourself.
You've done this before, you know how to do it. Like,
but and then it's baby steps, you improve and whatever. So
I think that's important for people to know. But we've got some questions that someone has sent in.
Exciting.
So we're gonna hit some of those, I think, now. All right. Music production related. Yes. Let me just check the questions. I'll get them up on the computer.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll hit them up, and let's try and bring some production knowledge to the masses. Yeah.
So first question was, and this is like a huge one that every producer has: how to get over like creative or writer's blocks. I've got my opinion on this, but I want you to tell everyone your maybe opinion and thoughts and advice first.
All right. So I once said that there's no such thing as writer's block, right? Now, I'm going to half retract that statement.
Half retract. I love it. Already.
Half retract.
Half retract.
So, yes, there is a writer's block, but it's about teaching yourself to recognize when that is and to break it quickly. It's breaking a pattern, and it's like any other pattern.
Yeah.
So if you can understand when you're getting into a stage of frustration with something and why, then it's easy to break it. Like easy. And I don't get creative block ever unless it's with the album and I've forced myself to do everything myself. Because it's like...
But now you've recognized that.
Exactly.
And so you just kind of know how to break it and you work.
Exactly. And I think that's why I'm retracting half of it. So if you're like, you know, you're working on something, or actually no, because a lot of people go, I don't know what to work on. I don't know what to write, and they just go from there. Like, to me, that's maybe, you know, this is my opinion, but to me that feels a little lazy. Like it feels like you haven't really made an effort to go and inspire yourself. Like for me, I love music that much that I can get off playing any kind of genre or getting involved with something or finding some passion off someone else that shares the same thing. Whether they're talking about, you know, dubstep, which is not my favorite genre in the world, but like I have a lot of respect for a lot of people that make it, and I can chat to somebody about dubstep or in that scene for ages because it's a shared passion.
Yeah.
So if you're like sitting there going, oh, I don't know what to write, I feel stuck, like nothing's working, usually that's a frustration from staying on the same thing or in the same place for too long.
Yep.
And change is always good.
Yeah.
So whether it be changing genres, changing new sample pack, working with a new producer, going outside, collecting samples from outside, working in a new studio space, like I can go on forever. Watching tutorials, like
there's so many things you actually can do within music. Music's so broad.
Yes, and I think that's like people
Part
say,
of the problem, though,
isn't it? That's right.
What do I do? Like, where do I start?
Yeah, it also like, you know, you feel limited because you go, like, especially if you sort of started with something, you might go, I'm a house DJ or I'm you know, whatever, I make this and people know me for this. And like I'm going to say famously, but it's not really, but I just put out whatever, like different genres, weird sounding tracks, like just because that's me. But if it's like, you know, if you're thinking, oh, I've got to write a house tune, and you're only you're limiting yourself. You're putting a cap on it. Yeah. So then you might say, okay, well, I'm going to try and make a tune out of this particular sample only, and just reflip a whole bunch of these samples. You might come up with something that sounds half cool. Then you can replace some of those things and work on it and move from there.
Yeah.
Like working with you, you know, I'll come in and you might show me a new piece of gear or a new EQ or something, and I'll go nuts trying to, you know, like figure it out or try and do something else with that. So creative block is because you're not feeling creative. It's a block. You've just got to work your way around it. You've got to figure out how to inspire yourself.
And I suppose everyone's different. So you've got to figure it out for yourself. So it's like people always, you know, like it's like, oh, how do I get over this creative block? And it's like, or writer's block. It's like, well, you kind of got to figure that out yourself. But you can't just sit there and just say, oh, I've got writer's block, I'm not going to do anything till I feel inspired, because I feel like that's not, it's you're just waiting for it to come along, and I don't feel like that's the right way to go about it. If it's something you really want to do, you've got to try things. And like you said about house, you know, like I have that where I'm like, oh, I'm going to write a house track, but it's like...
Spill beer all over the couch in a second, watch me.
No, it's all G.
Right, we're good.
But it's like, oh yeah, but like, let's try and make like an African inspired with like, you know, like let's find some cool African samples. Or I think for me personally, the best track I've written is Shaolin Style, which I just had this
I do like that one.
Kung Fu sample pack
because it's different
for ages. And I was like, I want to write a track to that. And that's how the track started. And it just went from there. And that's my favorite track that I've written. So I think I'm still of the same opinion as what you were saying, is that I don't think it exists, because it's but you've kind of elaborated on it for me now, because I've always said it doesn't exist. It just means that you're too lazy or not motivated enough to sit down and keep coming up with ideas till something works. Yeah. But I think I like yours a little bit better. It's about finding how to...
It's recognizing when you've hit that point.
What it is, and figure out how to get around it. Because, like I said, like I can come up with ideas forever. They might be shit, but I can keep coming up with ideas until I get a good one.
But it's the self-awareness to know that your idea might be shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. And like
that's okay.
But going back into a collaboration setting with a lot of other people, and especially in the band, you've got to learn that sometimes you think your idea is the best, but it's not the best. Yeah. Or like, I'm not saying I always thought my ideas were the best, but you've got to be able to let go of stuff. And the same with the album.
Oh yeah.
You just got to let go and be like, yo, that's how it is. Move on, next thing. Yeah. And maybe that will lead into our second question. But if you're not, if you're not happy with how things are, just change it, stop, come back to it, or like move around.
Yeah.
Don't get yourself stuck in the same
Yeah.
thing and thinking my ideas are best and there's no other way around it and it's not going to work unless it's this way.
Yeah.
This is being stubborn and you probably ruin the record.
Yeah.
Which I've done.
It's the same with like, great example is like kick drums. Like I used to sit there for ages and try and get my kick and make it perfect and like
EQing a snare.
synthesize it and EQ it and all that. And like nowadays I'm just like, no, just get another kick. Like get
It doesn't work, just change it.
Yeah, if it's not sounding how you want and you've played with it for a while, just get another kick. There's millions of kicks out there.
Yeah.
And and then sometimes you just drop a new kick in and it's just like you don't even have to do anything to it almost.
Yeah.
It's just like it's
works. Ready. It's ready for the track. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have spent 3 hours trying to fix this kick. Like I should have just put
Maybe
a new
that's
kick
the
in.
fear of it, isn't it? That you're like, I just spent 6 hours EQing this kick and now I'm not even going to use it. It's like, for God's sake, like,
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Yeah, like I like what you said there about being willing to throw things away, because I think we get so attached to our music and what we're doing to be able to throw things away and maybe go like even when you work on a track and you're like working on, you're like, I like this one element in it, I don't really like the rest. Let's just get rid of everything else and just start with that element. Pretend I'm doing a remix.
Yeah.
And remix, well, just using that one element.
Yeah, I think
I love that. I love that technique. That's such a good strategy.
It is, isn't it? Or like rewriting something like under a vocal and then taking the vocal out and like,
remix your own tune.
Yeah.
It's still an original, but
Yeah.
it feels like you're remixing something.
That's why I do VIPs. Just like
you feel like
fun.
you're getting inspiration off someone else, but you're not. It's your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good tip. Use that one. There we go.
onto
We
it.
just came up with a good tip. All right. Second question then is when to get out of a loop and work on the rest of a track.
Okay, so
This one's tough.
it is.
Yeah.
Again, it's a self-awareness game.
Yeah.
Like so there's two parts to it. One, I found that you can persist on something long enough to find an answer.
Yep.
But that's only if you have a deadline.
Yeah.
Because there's no other reason I would want to push through that frustration.
Yeah.
Like, again, why are we doing it? We enjoy it, right? So if the loop isn't working, what are you holding on to? Are you holding on to like, this has to work. I'm only making this genre. This is like, if you're on a loop and you're stuck, it's the same thing. You're stuck. Change it up. Get out of it. The second part of the question, work on the rest of the track. That's one way of doing it. You go to another thing in the track, but often it can just mean have a week rest on that track.
Yeah.
And come back and you hear it totally differently. Yeah. And you're, it's like, this is where I can go. And I think a lot of the best ideas come in the first 15 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big gap, but the first initial idea. And if you can, stop being so technical and just sort of lay the idea and flesh the idea out, but then not get attached to the idea, that'll help you to move on from a loop and not get stuck in a loop.
Yeah.
It also helps to not put it in a loop in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, unless I'm doing a drum groove, I don't ever have anything in a loop.
Yeah.
Because that'll happen. I'll be looping over. I'm going around in circles. So if you find yourself in a loop, as soon as you've found it, you know that you need to change. That's my advice.
Yeah. Because what I would do instead of a loop is I would just, if you've got like a 32 bar loop, I'll duplicate it a few times and change some of the stuff. Maybe it's just I might then duplicate one of the instruments and change the synth. And then just changing that synth gives me a whole different vibe. It might be playing the same thing, but it's a different synth and it gives me a whole different idea and vibe of what to do next. And it's like, that gives me an idea that if that lead's doing that, then maybe the bass line could actually do this and it'll play off that. And like it sort of changes it. Or go to a totally different part of the track. Go to a loop is generally your drop section. Go to your build up or go to a breakdown and try and write that and then see how that might give you ideas to finish off the loop or to keep writing the rest of the track.
I'm a big believer in like good music writes itself.
Yeah. But that's only when you get to a certain level of proficiency, I suppose is the word.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to be competent to be able to write music to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother kettle of fish, isn't it?
Yeah. You have to get to that stage where you can actually do that. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we're at that stage, so it's good
Yeah,
for us.
it's
but
nice.
Other people maybe aren't always at that stage, but
Yeah, like a lot of it is the technical frustration. You've got the ideas in your head, you just can't work out how to
Can't get
spit
it
it
down.
out on paper quick enough.
sing it into Ableton and then use
oh,
the
man,
MIDI,
yes.
the MIDI thing.
Sing it. Yes.
Just hum
sing
it.
in. Hum it in, play it in, whatever, get the ideas down. Yeah, a loop is a tricky one because I don't get stuck in my loops too much.
And see, I'm more of an one of my great strengths, I believe, in music production is arrangement.
Arrangement, yeah.
So for me, I like when I get into that loop thing, I go, oh, it's time to arrange. Like if I get stuck in the room, I'm like, let's start arranging. So,
Yeah.
and then that's where I get out of that, and that's why I said I go to the build up or I go to the breakdown.
Yeah.
And I start figuring that out.
Oh, it was Kashmir for the Cataracts, and famously dropped that like MIDI in to the wrong layer, and he moved, instead of putting it into like a, I don't know, whatever, he dropped it into this bass layer, and then it made G6's bass line. And he was like, well, that was a mistake, but it totally changed the whole track, changed the whole way things went. So, you know, like, don't be afraid to, like you said before, just sort of change the melodies up, change the sounds up.
That happened in Shaolin style. There's a part where in the first half of the track, the lead is on the beat, and then as it gets further on, I moved it to duplicate it, and I moved it to a section, and it was half a beat off. And it totally changes the
sick.
vibe of it, and
Yeah.
it sounds amazing. Like,
That's awesome.
And so that totally, I was like, I went to fix it, and I went, no, that actually sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'm totally going to use that in,
That's
as
cool,
part of
yeah.
it. So, those happy accidents. But it's like we said, like, don't get stuck in the loop. If you find yourself stuck in the loop, move on.
That's the moment
Start
you're already
arranging,
stuck, yeah.
start doing other things. Like I said, duplicate it out. So you've got a couple of versions. You've got 32 times 4.
Yeah.
Do the
Save
math.
it as a new
Do the
project.
math. What's that? 128 bars? Quick math.
Yeah.
And then you've got a few sections, and you can change each one, and you've still got that one original loop, but then you've got variations on the loop.
And variations are
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
especially in tech house, eh?
Yeah, definitely. All right, how to finish off a project. Now, this is a great one to have you in to talk about, because I know that you've put out a little checklist
Yes.
for finishing off a track before. So tell
It'd
us
be great
about,
if I could remember my checklist.
I know.
now.
I was just going to say you want to have it written down or
Testing me.
something, but
No.
But give us some. We can post a link with this and maybe to the checklist. But what's some things that just come to mind that when you're getting ready to finish up a track? And I suppose maybe we talk about the writing aspect first, because
Yeah.
obviously mixing down is a whole nother process, and that sort of comes after you've written the track.
Yes.
For the final mix down anyway, but.
Yeah, so you sort of break it up into phases. You might have like the creative phase, which is still where you're kind of tweaking ideas. I think a lot of people will get stuck in that, and especially because, you listen to it that many times on repeat that you get bored. By the time you're ready to release a song, you're probably already sick of it. So
Definitely.
yeah, in the creative phase, it's about, sit on a track for a little while, let it sit, let it breathe, and then if you're at a point where you think, I actually can't add anything on, or don't want to add anything, I'm pretty happy with how that sounds. It just needs to mesh well together.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. A lot of people will think with two different hats on at the same time. They'll think with a creative and a mixing hat, and get confused.
Get you really confused. Yeah.
So you go creative first, and you make sure all the elements are in there that you actually want.
Yeah.
Then commit to that and bounce it down to audio or whatever, make it nice and easy for you.
Yep.
Then bring it into the mixing stage.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, with creativity, it's only if you're, and both, feedback from other people, but you've shared enough of your ideas and it seems to fit well. You're happy. Like that's, you stop and go, okay, like that's enough. Stop ruining the track. Then you can take it to the mix down, making sure the sounds fit together well. Now that's obviously the time to reference against other things. Definitely be sending it to people who you trust, because like I fell into the trap early of having a lot of people in my life that would just tell me that I'm amazing and things are sick. And it's like, dude, this is sick, da 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 da. And then, you know, your ego goes, oh, I'm actually really good at this. And then you think everything is gold. And having somebody that someone's ears you trust and can give you and say, hey, nah, dude, this sounds like average, like, or you should work on this. Yeah, like, and then again, like we were saying, being the big enough person to accept that and let go of that attachment.
But you've got to be able to send tracks to people and appreciate when that comes back, because a lot of people send tracks to people because they just want that.
Yes.
They want the, that's sick,
that's
bro.
sick, yeah.
Because then when someone goes, oh, I didn't really like this bit, they go, oh, well, this and this and this is because
it's not mixed
They
yet.
come up with excuses and stuff. Yeah, and I've done, like, well, I'm sure we've all done that before.
Yeah, I've
go,
done it,
it's not mixed out, or you preface it when you send it to them like, oh, it's not mixed down yet. Like,
That's why I said it, because that's my token go-to thing. It's not mixed.
But like usually, unless you send it to some, like, usually if you're sending it to someone, unless they're in a proper studio where they can actually listen technically, it's like, of course it's not mixed. Like, otherwise, like, if you don't have a good studio, I'm not going to send it to you to give me mixed feedback.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So a lot of the time, mixed feedback is from people that work regularly with mix ready stuff, whether it be label bosses, artists that are doing their own mixing better than me, all this kind of stuff, people like yourself that run studios. So it's like getting that feedback critical, and then referencing to other tracks, something that I used to just be a bit lazy with, and also not referencing to the right kind of material as well.
I'm interested to talk and dive into that a little bit, because I've heard a few big artists and I've been on a few sort of group discussions about referencing, because a lot of this was when Chris Royal was doing a few little like group discussions with the heap of producers in there and just putting it live. And we spoke about referencing, and he said, do you think that Flume references tracks? Do you think that the guys who are at the forefront of music, the most creative guys who are doing, you know, pushing the boundaries and stuff, do you think they actually do reference tracks? Maybe for technical loudness, to match volumes and things like that. But when it comes to actually trying to, if that's what you're trying to do, if you're just trying to make something that sounds like a commercial
really different
banger,
or whatever,
but if you're trying to actually do something different and unique, referencing tracks maybe isn't the best idea. What do you think about that?
No,
that
good.
idea?
I love this.
Because I hadn't thought about that either until they said that.
Yeah.
Like Chris said that. He said, I've spoken to so many big artists and they do not reference tracks. Because, and then, you know, you say that to other people and they laugh at you. They're like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, of course you reference tracks. And it's like, well, yeah, referencing is great when you're learning and for maybe technical stuff like volume and, you know, frequency response.
Yeah.
But when you actually talking about writing, and if that's what you're trying to do, come up with creative individual stuff. What do you think about that concept? Because I see both sides.
I love this. That's a really good point. What I'll say is, why are you referencing?
Exactly. You've got it. Yeah.
You're referencing because you want it to sound good in comparison to other things, right? Now, a lot of people reference at the start and are told to reference because it's training your ear.
Yeah. And that's when you're learning. That's
when
it's
you're
good. It's definitely
learning.
good then.
Most mix engineers that are working in a studio that they know the acoustics, they know how it sounds, they've mixed countless records in there, they don't need to reference.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that nowadays we've got referencing EQ software that can tell you whether it's good or not, and like that's beside the point. But traditionally, if you're starting out, you need to know what the professional level sounds like.
Yeah.
People like Flume and stuff like this, okay, I get, because it's so out there. It's different, right? He also doesn't like final mix his track. So it's mixed by a mixing engineer, definitely. Right? Which is also that person, okay, Flume would know how to mix his own stuff pretty well, I'd say, but...
I hope he would by now.
Yeah.
I heard that when he first started, though, he was like, he would do stuff, then he would send it to mix engineers, and mix engineers would go, that's wrong. Well, like, you've done that wrong. And he's like, well, no, that's how it is.
That's like, how I want it.
Fix it.
Yeah.
You know, make it right.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're working with. But yeah.
Well, a lot of artists don't know how to mix. Yeah. And they just send them the ideas and the mix engineer will fix it. And
you learn that.
Yeah. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that referencing is really just, it doesn't matter what you're referencing to. You've just got to have a reference to begin with. So whether your reference is built up over years of experience and knowing what a good song is supposed to sound like, especially in your space, or you get used to, like, people talk about acoustic padding and all this, like, should I totally isolate my studio so that there's no like bad frequencies? It's like, well, yes, but it's even more important to actually know your environment better. Because if you're used to your environment, if you know that there's more bass, you'll just turn the bass down, or you'll just mix according to that. And if you're used to it, that's better than working in something that's, you know, a bit different.
And I suppose that's why you then reference tracks that you know how they sound in that space, because then it trains you like, oh, that's how these tracks sound in this space.
Yeah. So that's kind of.
So it is important when you're learning your room or learning how to produce.
Yeah. So to wrap that up, I would always reference if you are trying to sort of match something that's already out there, because if you want it to stand among that, you're going to need to do it. And if you don't already know how to do that and can't just do it, then you need to reference. Once you get to a stage where your ear is good enough to just mix and it sounds good and you know what levels you need to hit, you don't need to reference anymore. And I think, you know, there's no right or wrong. Like, you can't say, no, don't reference, you don't need to reference, but then some people might not need to. They're naturally just amazing and they know what it sounds like.
I like what you said before about you need to know why you're referencing. That really stuck out to me. It's like, if you know why you're referencing, that's, you know, because maybe it is a volume thing, maybe it is a frequency thing. Oh, is my bass hitting as hard as this other bass on this track that I know how it sounds? You know.
Something I've learned is that all of my mixes have been really harsh in the top ends. And I'm starting to think all of this drumming without earplugs when I was younger has ruined the top end frequencies, because no matter where I mix, these harsh ends are pushing in my mixes. And that's now something that I'm aware of referencing, and it's self-awareness. It's like knowing and getting used to your environment and the way you listen to things.
You have to come in and mix down a track in here, because I don't think you've ever done a mix down in our studio.
I haven't.
Once we have it set up, you'll have to come in and do a mix down on one of your tracks, just so that you can, because maybe...
I'd love to check that. I should get a real hearing test too, but I want to check it in a nice, proper environment.
You know what we should do? We should hit up... This is a brilliant idea right now. I've just come up with a great idea. We should do a day where we hit up a sound audiology place and go, look, we're going to bring in 30 producers. Can you do a discount price to do sound tests for everyone? Because honestly, they take note. Like, I get it done because I work at a school and I'm around, you know, loud machinery and stuff sometimes. So I get it paid for.
That's cool.
Every second year. So, and honestly, it takes 5 or 10 minutes. It's not really that hard on them, like what they do. They literally just go through this thing and the computer does it.
I
reckon if we had, you know, 20 to 30 producers and booked out a whole day of them, go, can we have a discount, and just...
I'm sure they would.
Smash them out.
That's a really good idea. Because
if you want to get a hearing test, let us know.
Drop a comment.
And we'll organize, because I think that would be valuable, because it's not cheap. It's like it's like $170 or something. It's not cheap.
That's why I haven't done it yet. Probably.
So I think if we could, like, you know, do it and get it, I think a lot of people would do it. And it's just good to know, because, like, I know now from those hearing tests that on my left side, because when I was young, I had some ear infections and things. The really high frequencies are a little bit lower than the right. So I know that now. So, like, I always know that the left side's going to be different.
Well, I can't remember who it is. Hopefully someone knows, but someone famously recorded a whole record in the studio, mixed down a whole record with one of the speakers slightly blown. And they mixed down the whole record like that. But then when it still translated across other speakers, and then they went to go change it when they realized, but then was like, actually, nah, because it was done the whole way through, it actually is fine. And like little things like this. But if you have the self-awareness, if you go and figure it out and go, okay, I know that these frequencies are different, then you'll have a better idea of referencing. You'll have a better idea of how to look after your ears, why you should wear earplugs, all of the above. You know, it's like
even mixing it like low volumes, like
oh
when we
yeah,
were doing finding a space for this, like a lot of you know, real estates and owners and stuff were like, well, how loud do you have it? And we were like, well, look, to be honest, we can't have it super loud. If we want to mix for 8 hours or, you know, spend a whole day in here, we can't have it loud because your ear fatigue and your ears, and, you know, you have to keep turning it up and up and up. And like mixing at low volumes is super awesome. And a great technique for mix downs is like, when you think your mix down is right, turn it right down till you can, and then just turn it up till you can hear whatever the first thing is you can hear. And just like, is that the main element of the track?
Yes.
And for dance music, it's usually the kick. So it's like, is the first thing you hear as you're turning it up the kick? And then what's the next element? You know, if it's bass music or, you know, it's like housey stuff, is it the bass next or is it the drums or whatever it is? And listen to it at low volume. Listen to the track at low volume. What are the main things that stick out? Because they're obviously the loudest. You know,
that's right.
And I think a lot of people don't do that. They just crank it and go, oh, it sounds sick loud. Everything's going to sound better loud. It's how our ears work, you know.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. What's that called?
I don't know what it's called.
You know, like
there's got to be a name.
There's there's a scientific thing that says as music gets louder, it's something with our ears. Sounds better. Yeah. There's like
we perceive
a thing. Perceived loudness. I don't know. Anyway, Google it.
Let's see this next question.
We got a couple questions going on.
So we were talking about how to finish off a project, and we sort of got sidetracked, which happens all the time. But for me, like we'll put the link up for your thing because I know there's a mad checklist there. But for me, the process of finishing a track is like, you know, I get the arrangement. Once I've got the arrangement, I've got the flow of the track.
Yeah.
Then I go and I do all the things like I go, all right, I need effects. So white noise, risers, crash cymbals, things like that. And I do that. All right, that's cool. That's easy. You know what I mean? That's easy to figure and do. And so you can just do that. And that's something when I get stuck, I just go, all right, well, I'm just going to do some effects. And I just do the white noise and because it's easy. It's like you know, you kind of know it's an easy thing to do. And then I look at, you know, like variation, you know, at the end of phrases, putting those little fills in, dropping the bass out, dropping the kick out, all those kind of
you
little...
said it right with phrases, like that's the thing, is you phrasing different parts of it. But you're right,
Yeah, so like changing the little ends and adding those little variations and things in there. And then I think the last thing is like automation stuff in terms of like build-ups to the drop. I know you've got a lot of resources you've put out with like filters and how you do the low and high filters and you can stereo wash it out, and I do all that kind of stuff. And then that's when I bounce out, and then we're in mix down mode.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
And that's when it's, you know, and then the mix down is obviously the last thing you should really be doing.
Yeah, I think I sort of skipped over the fact that, you do have to really go through and check that each thing's done. And like, you know, for instance, before taking it down from mix down, I mean, you can do it in the mix down stages, but like,
you can.
I like to try and, for example, put limiters on things on a lot of my channels.
Yeah.
Now, it seems a little counterintuitive because you don't want to sort of squash anything, but what it does is it helps give that extra room for when you take it into mixing. And little techniques like that, the automation, you know, just having things sort of creatively flowing so that if you're sending it to somebody else, they don't need to guess where that needs to be. Like they don't need to go, oh, well, this build up needs to sort of pull out a little bit more before dropping back in.
Yeah.
That's done. That's creative.
That's the creative element.
Yeah, that's
because like for a while there, I used, like me and Johnny, we used to do the mix downs for my tracks, and we would do creative mixing. We would get into that realm and do it together, but it sort of got to the stage where I was like, well, like now I just gave him a track. Like I used to give Johnny tracks when we would sit there and do the mix down with like 70 channels, you know, like I'd give him the 3 clap layers that are making the one sound, just because I was just always like, oh, but what if you want to change the thing? And now I'm like, well, no, because that's how I wrote it.
Yeah. And
it's
so that's
how I want it to sound.
It's where you got to commit,
fitting it in. And so now it's like we just mixed down a track the other day, and it was like, I think I gave him 8 stems. You know, it's like, so really better, condensing it. And it was, to be honest, it probably sounded the best out of any of the tracks that we've done, because he didn't have to guess as to what does he want that clap to sound like. I've got these 3 layers. Maybe I should bring this part out more or this part. It's like, no, that's the clap. That's what the clap sounds like.
And that's what you've been
You just have to
given,
make it fit into the rest of the track or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I didn't even do that on this. I think I had like kick and drums.
Yeah, perks.
Kick, drums.
Yeah.
It was like kick, drums, bass, synths, FX,
Yeah,
vocals.
that's it.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, really break it down. You know, make it basic. So, I think that's something. And like, I know you mix down as you go as well.
Yeah.
Like,
yes, that's kind of. It's kind of important.
yeah, because it's got to sound semi decent while you're going.
Yeah, but then see, like, I'm really bad at getting sidetracked with exciting things. Like, you know, for example, I'll be like, oh, I just want a sort of fluttery effect synth in the background. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, and I'll start creating something, reverse something, and then
Spend like
I'm all,
4
yeah,
hours
it's
on
like
a little fluttering
there's
effect.
4 hours gone, like doing the background effect, and I've forgotten where I've even started.
Yeah.
So there's an element of, yes, you've got to mix by just sort of maybe volumes and then slight EQ and compression. Like I'll use EQ, compressor, maybe a bit of reverb if it's creative, and delay, like that kind of stuff. But most of it is so basic before you get to the mix down stage, especially in that first like hour when it's just ideas, passion, like let's go, let's get it down. Stop worrying about notching EQs and stuff. Like this is more me getting angry at myself, but stop worrying about it.
Yeah, it's a good tip for everyone. Like the only EQing I do when I'm in that writing phase is like, all right, so if I'm like having a bass line with a sob and a top, I'll just like like high pass the top end and low pass the
you
the
can
sub
make
or
it
whatever.
fit
Like,
100%
make it
later.
Easy, you know, make it easy for yourself. Don't go in and do the there's that resonant. There's a resonance in here, and go and try and find that notch and get that out, because it's like, because then it takes you totally out of that creative mindset and sort of analytical.
And going back to what you said earlier about like the sound might not be right. So just because you got the bass line, you come in and you go, oh yeah, I want the bass line, but you don't have time to search through a million patches to find or like design a bass from scratch. So use whatever bass you can get to quickly and write the line, and then come back and maybe tweak the sounds later. Yeah. And you've got the idea, but without fumbling and bumbling around.
Because I know like yourself and myself as well, like when we've worked together, like we start with a preset, you know, like to write the line.
Yeah,
and then
100%.
you go, all right, like I want to actually sit there and figure out what the bass line, the actual synth and the sound design sounds like. But I'll start with the patch just to give me a vibe so I can write.
Yeah.
And I think that actually gets on to the next question.
Yes.
Anything to do with sound design theory.
Sound design theory.
Yeah, so theory is interesting because that's such a big thing, and that's almost like, I feel like sound design is almost like like sound designing is its own job.
Yeah, it's like, welcome to the
I mean?
next 12 weeks of sound design course.
Yeah, you've got like, mastering engineers, mix engineers, and sound design.
Sound design is on its own, yeah. You can do that on
And there's
your own.
ways to learn it in that, and I don't know, I think it's too hard to sit here and go, because it's so technical.
Yeah.
And it's very scientific, a lot of it, and you have to understand different ways to do it. I think the really good thing for me that's helped with sound design is working with analog synths, because you don't really have presets. You might have some in there, but you don't have, like, you can't download a preset pack that's like, oh, it's got all these presets to sound like this artist or something.
You
That's
just have
not
to make
there.
it, yeah.
You have to play around and tweak, and I think that's one of the best ways. Like, there's definitely basic stuff you have to learn, like, your ADSR, attack, sustain, decay, release. You've got to learn about your different waveforms, your sine waves, your saws, and all that kind of stuff. You've got to learn about your different types, subtractive, additive, FM synthesis. But I think a lot of the best way to learn, particularly the things you like and your sound, is to just play.
Yeah.
And I think that's easier with analog synths.
It is.
Because I feel like with digital synths, it's a little bit, with analog synths, you can turn two things at once.
Yeah, you twist it. Physically
but you
twist
can
it.
do two at once. You don't have to just do one with the mouse and then this one and that one. You can actually do multiple things. And so, that's what I've found with sound design that's helped me. Have you got any advice for people on sound design?
It depends on, Yes, I do. It depends on how much do you want to be a sound design artist? Like,
And it's also what genre. Let's be real.
yeah, that's very true.
House and tech house stuff, a lot of it, like if your bass line is like a, that garage square wave bass,
It's
that's
already
what
been
it
made
is.
10,000
That's what
times.
it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Make your own version of it, and then use that in every track. Like,
Yeah, I think like
if that's the sound you're going for.
yeah, what you said was perfect. I would dedicate an hour, 20 minutes even, just to open up any synth that you have, whether it's like Basic as or Serum, whatever everyone uses, and do one of two things. One, do what you do. Start from scratch, init preset, and
Play.
Which is that stand for initial?
Yes.
Oh,
Did you
God.
just realize that?
Yeah, 2020 has been a long year.
So you've been producing for so long, and you just realized.
I just called it init preset. Anyway, so you could start from that and build your own thing and try and create your own sounds. Work out what each knob actually does.
Yeah.
Now, that can be quite frustrating, and you can be like, I want to try and create this, but never create it. So it's best to go in without a reference of what you want to create in that instance.
Yeah.
The other flip side is if you know what types of sounds you want to create, find presets that are already out there and reverse engineer them.
Yeah.
Figure out, start turning stuff off, start playing with the knobs and stuff they've already automated in there.
Yep.
Start like looking at how they've built that patch up to be what it is. And you might go, oh, well, if I just twist that one, it helps bring out that effect in the sound. So then next time you open up a new patch and you want to try and play around with it, you just twist that one and go, oh, that sounds good. So that's what I mean by like, it depends on what level you want to take it.
Yeah.
Because if you're about the music and you just want to create some cool stuff and sort of sound unique and whatever, you don't need to know what each thing is doing because it's that, like you said, it's that technical. You're going to start pulling your hair out trying to figure it out. So if it's just about the creativity, the music, just reverse engineer, play around, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Or like we do, just find a preset and then start tweaking and start sort of building on it with other kind of things or layering and whatever. And you can make it sound unique.
Yeah.
So in terms of the theory, if you're interested in it, then start looking into it. So just, if you find it fun, go and do it. Some people find it more fun than others.
And to be like, even though I'm not an amazing sound designer, I've gotten better over the years just because I've learnt little things. It's learning the little things and picking them up. And sometimes it's because you get a patch and you go, whoa, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
How is that done? And like you said, you reverse engineer it. Or even something I would say is like, if you do want to make a bass line like this artist, look up those tutorials that are out there and go through the process of how they make it and what it does.
Yeah.
Because you actually will learn, but don't do it just to have that patch then, to use that same patch every time that sounds like them.
Yeah.
Do it to understand the principles along the way because they will explain what they're doing along the way.
Just
as
to
well
watch
in
what
most
they're
of them.
doing, yeah.
Yeah, and do it and follow along and then use it in your music and like, actually I've got to get I lost all my presets that I had made, and you have them all because I gave them to you.
Yeah, I have all of
You've got
yours.
all my custom presets,
Yes.
and I don't have them anymore.
They'll be on sale soon for 99 cents from my store only.
If you want a Boykin Clay preset pack,
Just message me, I'll flick them out. No.
so I got to get them off you. But like, make your own presets. Like, learn how to make a sub bass, and then make your own, and use it and have it as a preset. So like, I used to be able. When I get them back, I'll just have a go-to sub that I can just put on instead of having to go through and like make one or do whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing as well. Make your own presets because then you don't have to. You can just go and grab it.
That's something you can do to get out of a loop or working on your writer's block, like we said earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Sound
All right,
design.
what's the next question? So the last one, and this is huge. We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
Workflow tips and tricks.
Workflow tips and tricks. So the important thing, as I said earlier, was getting the idea out. And that's work. For me, that's workflow in the creative stage is having as less friction as possible.
Yep.
Now I'm gonna give you some helpful hints that I don't listen to myself. So this is like go and listen to this because
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, big time. So organize yourself in your projects so that you've got a few things that you can go to quickly. Yeah. Whether it be that same bass patch that you go to just to write bass. It's not going to be the end one, but it's like, I need a bass line, boom, drag, start playing. If it's the minimum friction between the idea and coming out onto the page.
I just found my favorite bass preset that I use now to write.
Yeah, and you just
to start with.
Yeah, and it's so helpful, and it can kind of give you that starting point. The other thing is to set up like templates in your chosen DAW, or learn the shit out of your shortcuts on your keyboard. Like that is a huge one.
Yeah, definitely.
Finding shortcuts. And then I know you do this, bringing in like a drum rack sort of like pre-made that you just open up a project and the template's there with the drums and stuff to start putting in drums.
So my template has like drums and stuff there, and because I make house, I know that I'm going to need a kick on every beat, like 4/4. So I've got the MIDI in there with a 4/4 kick.
Yeah.
And I know the clap is going to be on every 2 and 4. So I've got the 2 and 4 MIDI there.
Yeah.
And I've got, simpler or sample there. So literally all I have to do is start listening to drum samples and just drag them in, and then I don't have to program the drums. They're just there.
Yeah, and that's a great place to start with, to get those ideas out, and you can always go back and change it later, but it's about getting that.
Well, you definitely vary it later and you add extra things. But there's always going to be like hi-hat, like house music. There's always going to be a kick on every beat. There's always going to be a clap on 2 and 4. There's always going to be a hi-hat on the offbeat.
Yeah.
Like these kinds of things that are always going to be there.
Yeah. You're right. It's just about making sure that you're speeding up the process, because if you're doing, most of us have an idea, or you don't necessarily go in the studio and then get struck with a great idea. You sort of come in with an idea often, or you might be inspired to write something and you get into it.
Yeah.
And that's when you really need all the things at your fingertips. And that comes down to even like having like a microphone set up, or your keyboard plugged in. Like that can, I've been in studio sessions where it's like, I need a keyboard. Just give me a keyboard to just kind of like hash out some ideas. I've got something in my head. Oh, we'll just gotta find a cable. Let me hang on.
That was when we were working on that collab.
Oh my God, it was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was me. It was me because I forgot that
I'm bagging you out.
There's an issue with my keyboard and my thing, so it wasn't working, and I was like, and you were like, I've got mine, and we plugged it in. But yeah, I agree. I do agree.
But yeah, that's an example of like it just needs to be ready. And like if you're faffing around with chords or like trying to figure stuff out, you lose the initial momentum. Yeah. And when you're working with session musicians, vocalists coming in, like
time is money.
Time is money, and like the fine line between passion and frustration in like a studio session is like, it's really delicate. You've got to balance between like having that and going and then getting stuck and keeping moving. Like keeping moving is important.
Yeah.
And I think all of my workflow stuff is to just minimize that friction and just have that free flow state of like, ideas to paper.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's
getting
kind
ideas
of it,
down quick. And again, that's something that takes a lot of time to learn and to get used to. And, like for me, like, because I work a lot in the grid and working not with a keyboard, with a lot of stuff, but that's because I understand the grid and how timing it, like I've got a very mathematical brain myself. So like I understand where things can lie, and because I used to beatbox, I sort of...
Did you really?
I used to be a mad beatboxer, man.
Bro, this is it. We need to make this happen.
So because of that, with beatboxing, you can only do like one sound at a time. So you need to know where they all lie within a bar so that you can do them. So like my brain works really well, and that's why I always say my strength is writing drums, writing drum grooves and stuff like that.
Sick, yeah.
Because I can Like I know like, oh, I want something off the beat. So I know where the triplets lie in the grid. Like I can just click on them and know that they're there and like, oh, that'll work. And then go, oh, move that here, here, here. And like so many people like watch me do that because they usually like have to like play it in on something or do it. And they go, how do you do that you just know like where it should go? And I'm like, well, because I can hear it in my head and I can see it. Like I can actually visualize. So it's like it's a weird thing it's a weird mathematical thing for me in terms of the grid and where things for timing of stuff lies.
And you're right, because like whatever works with your strengths and how you use it is where you're going to be more successful. So you know that you know how to do that and you have confidence in that, so you can like smash that out really quickly and and have it the idea down nice and quick. So maybe identifying weaknesses where we're not as good at being quick with things and where we can speed them up is how you would help.
And I even did that the other day, and I said, who's got some good resources I can do, for pads and leads, writing and stuff, because I'm always looking to improve on things. And that's definitely something that I've recognized in my music is probably one of my weaknesses that I could work on. It's not like I don't know how to do it, but it's not my strength. And so I know I need to work on that to get better at it. So I think the whole thing that we've touched on with all these questions and everything we've talked about is self-awareness.
It really is.
You need to be self-aware as to what your strengths are, your weaknesses, and how you work and think within the music. Yeah.
And that comes with losing the attachment to, I'm going to say everything. Sounds a little bit like, spiritual, but it's more like, just like if you're trying too hard, or you're trying, this, that, and the other, and things aren't working, or you've got to know, like we said, you've got to know what works best for you.
Yeah.
And then not get worried or worked up if that's not how you thought it was going to be or how you want it to go.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to go how you want it to go. And it's always going to be better if you're being true to what works for you.
And learning what you like in something, what technique you like, how you like doing it. Like, for example, there's a million ways to do things. How do you do side chaining for your kick? What do you use to do that?
I use the stock Ableton compressor.
Yeah.
Sidechain to the kick.
Yeah, so sidechain compression is what you use.
Sidechain compression,
yeah.
yes.
Whereas some people use volume automation.
Yeah, like LFO tool or like
LFO tool,
track spacer.
I've been using just Kickstart.
Kickstart, another one.
Kickstart, like there's a million ways to do sidechaining, and it's like that's how you come up with the signature sound too. You choose all these little 1%ers. You use compression. I use volume automation. So our songs are going to sound different. You use this synth for your bass. I use this synth for my bass. It's all these little tiny 1%ers that make up the difference that then makes your sound different. Because like people who I show tracks to now, they go, oh, that sounds like you. And I'm like, really?
Yeah,
how?
like, how? Yeah.
How? I'm like, I don't understand how it sounds like me. And they're like, well, it just does.
It just does, yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Everyone is worried about how you get your sound, but that's...
It's by trying new techniques and figuring out which technique you like best.
And sticking to it. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and following that, and you'll
Everyone's
create
like,
it
thinks it's hard, but it's like, no, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, how do you like your bass to sound? Make your bass sound like that. All right, let's have a break quickly because we've got some more other stuff to talk about. I'm going to announce something when we come back.
Yes, exciting.
That you don't even know about yet.
No, I don't.
So we'll get your reaction, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a bit more and finish it off.
Sounds good.
Let's do it. All right, so we're back.
We're back.
I said to you before that I was going to announce something.
Yeah, I'm ready.
That you don't actually know about yet.
I don't. I'm excited.
So for a little while, I've thought that will be really cool because podcasts, the great thing about them is you feel like you're in the room with the people, you're part of the conversation, right?
True.
So I thought about how you could take that to the next level. And VR is now...
Oh, stop it.
VR is now at the level where it's becoming more part of culture and that people have VR headsets for games, even like 360 video on your phone and stuff is a thing. So I have partnered with a VR company, Lumination, and we will be doing a short run to begin with of VR podcasts in the studio. So if you have a VR headset, you can put it on and it'll be like you're sitting in a chair, maybe over here or somewhere, and you can look around the room. You'll be able to see what we're seeing. You'll be able to feel like
You're in the room. Yeah.
you're in the room.
You're in
with
the
us.
conversation here.
So I'm working on a heap of guests. I think the first guest that I've now locked in, because I want to, if I'm doing this next level VR thing, I want to have some big guests and
yeah,
stuff.
for sure.
So I've got Lowdown is locked in for a podcast.
Amazing.
So I've known Paul for ages, but
That's going to be really cool. Paul's
Yeah.
full of amazing things. So
Yeah. So we've got Lowdown coming on, and I've got a few other people in mind that I haven't hit up yet. But
hush.
I'm quite sure. Well, I haven't hit them up. So
Right.
But I'm sure that we could that they'll be keen to do it. So yeah, that's the announcement.
That's so cool.
VR podcast, maybe 5 episodes will be coming.
That's so cool.
Looking to record them in January and release them sort of towards the end of January. There'll still be the normal version of the podcast, the audio, the video, but it's an and. It's
yeah.
and if you want to have that VR experience where you
so
feel
cool.
like you're in the room, if it's an artist you really love and you want to feel like you're part of the conversation
Yeah.
in another level, I'm going to be doing some VR podcasts.
That's so exciting, man.
Where you
Awesome.
can, feel like you're in the room. So that's the announcement, guys. I'm partnering with Lumination, which is a local company, and we're going to be doing a run of VR podcasts. So,
Hell yeah.
yeah. So we'll see how it goes because, I don't think that VR is big enough at the moment that it will be taken up and be a massive thing. Maybe if Joe Rogan did it in
Maybe.
podcasts, it would be a thing. But I think at this stage, I'd just like to do it to see how it goes and how hard it is and just to put it out there and see what you guys think. I'd love to get your feedback on it when it comes out, if it's something that we should keep doing. But we're just going to do a short run at the moment.
Yeah,
Maybe
cool.
5 episodes and see where it goes from there.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes because for you building this, building it up, it seems like you're always innovating. You're always looking for new ways to sort of bring the experience across to everyone. And I think that's the next step that's missing is having that little bit of inclusion to be like, yo, and then like you're just in the group conversation, you feel like you're more kind of part of it. So that's really exciting, bro.
So I think it's really cool because there's been so many times when I've listened to or watched podcasts where I've thought, man, it'd be so great to be in the room to listen to that or whatever. And I think this just, while it's not exactly the same, it definitely sort of will bring a little bit more of that feeling like you're the fly on the wall or you're sitting in a chair in the room.
100%.
So yeah, that's the announcement.
Very
VR
cool.
podcasts.
Very cool. First that I've heard of. I don't know anyone else doing VR podcasts.
I have seen one. It was a VR company, their podcast and stuff, but it was in a specific studio that was VR. This is going to be like
right here,
yeah, in our studio. So
that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and then who knows? Maybe we'll start developing technology and software to allow people to do it for themselves as a podcast.
Very cool.
So, but yeah, so that's the announcement. I'm really excited about it because I think it's such a cool concept, and
it is. Yeah, it is.
It's just something that like you said, I always love innovating and pushing the boundaries and things, and I think that's something that is totally doable. We have the technology. Why not give it a crack?
Yeah,
so,
why not? Why not? Hey.
So yeah, you'll have to come in for a.
I'm definitely
for a
gonna.
VR
I want. Yeah,
podcast.
I'm
You're
gonna be
like-
sitting. I don't have a VR headset.
Yeah.
So
but like even with the
but
phone,
you can use
move
the
phone
you
around
can move
to-
it around. So I think I'm just gonna be in there and like, imagine if you put like secret hidden like things up around the room for those VR guests, and they're just kind of like they might
Behind
get
it and stuff.
Yeah,
But
like
these guys can't.
you
see
won't
it.
see. It's just you need a VR little pass to be able to come in and get a
That's
few,
cool. I like that
few little
idea.
secrets
Yeah, I
that are
like
sitting
that. I
behind
like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm definitely gonna implement that.
All right, sick.
Yeah, so that's the announcement. But let's talk a little bit about plugins. It's
Yes.
Black Friday is upon us. There's some great deals out there. Like we were talking earlier about Isotope and the the bundle they've got going. I think it's $49 for like the Elements versions of a
And
lot
like
of their
the
stuff.
full versions of that, like, is worth so much money.
Oh,
So
heaps.
49 is a steal.
I think it's $49 to buy them all individually would be, I think it's $1,200. So
like,
that's it.
what
Yeah.
a bug! Like, you'd be silly not to get. Isotope is really good.
Yeah, even though it's Elements and it doesn't have all of the features in like ozone and
For
all that
$50,
kind of stuff. But the great thing is that you then are able to upgrade.
yeah,
And so then when Black Friday rolls around next year,
you got an upgrade price.
you upgrade.
Yeah, I'm all for Isotope. I use Isotope stuff regularly. I know a lot of people that do. It's one of the leading people, I think, in terms of like sound manipulation and plugins and stuff. They've really seemed to got a really good handle on what people are after and what sort of tools they'll need to use.
And like a lot of, like Chris Royal said about this, like there's a lot of tools in there that it's coming straight from the DAW and it's like, if you don't have a great room, Neutron will be able to tell you, oh, these two sounds are masking each other.
Yeah.
Because maybe you can't hear that in your room because, you know, your low end frequency response isn't that great. So it's really, I think Isotope is really great for people who don't have a great space because you can use these. And even if you just use some of the, you know, they've got like AI stuff in there that analyzes the sound and goes, oh, this is a bass instrument.
Yeah.
You should probably do this from what we hear. And maybe that's not what you end up doing, but it gives you a little bit of a rough idea of
starting point.
So there's obviously like, there's a resonant in here that I can get rid of, you know. So I think that it's really good for people who don't have a great space or something like that.
100%. The one that I'm looking out for is Soothe.
Yeah, it's
Soothe
Soothe
2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not going to put that.
Like
on
discount. You've really knocked my heartstrings here, saying that it's not going to be on sale.
Because I saw something that where they I think it might have even been the heavyweight bass group because there's someone in there that said, is it going to go on special? And I think someone who works for them or is a developer for them or whatever said, no, we're not going to put specials out because we know how good this plugin is.
Yeah, we don't need to.
We don't, you know, like if you know, and I think it's what, $300 is what it is?
Yeah. And like for those who don't know what it is,
explain what it is.
Soothe essentially is somewhat of an AI plugin which goes through and detects the harsh or resonant frequencies that are sticking out in whatever sound you decide to put it on. And I think that's what's so good about Soothe is that, having only used it a few times myself, you can pretty much throw it on anything that you want to sort of smooth out, like, and harsh vocals, cymbals, guitars, synths, like things that are a little bit harsh, and they've got, especially once you run them through a fair few other plugins and stuff.
Yeah.
Just taking the edge off those harsh things is going to even out everything in the mix and sit real nicely. So I've had my on for a long time. So
I was talking to Jay Berry, who runs. I can't believe I've just gone blank on the name of his teaching company, DJ Lab.
DJ Lab, yes.
I saw him using it and I hit him up and said, because I've never used it, I said, how is it like? And he said, dude, like it's so good because it just takes that job out of it. You don't have to sit there and find the resonant peaks and do it. You just chuck it on and it does it.
Yeah.
I said to him, well, is it something that would maybe be a bad thing for people who need to learn that?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, but as long as you already know what you're doing, it's good.
That's the thing, yeah.
I was just thinking then it would be a good way to go, here's the original sound. What does Soothe say needs to be taken out? And then you can go and look at, oh, okay.
And try and
so
do
I see
it.
you can hear it and go, oh, so that's what it's taking out. And then you can go to that frequency and pull it down and go, oh, yeah, I see what's going on. So I think it could be a really good learning tool as well.
Yeah, see,
it's almost like a professional showing you what to do. Like, this is what I would take out. It's like,
it is. And it shouldn't be used as a Band-Aid and things like this. But it shouldn't just be like,
you should know why you're using it again.
Yes. So you've got to, if you don't know how to go through and notch frequencies and listen for stuff that's ringing out, like, you know, notch up a really high Q value, EQ, sweep it across the spectrum, find those things that are ringing out, duck them down, and then if you throw Soothe on top, it's going to like almost even out the frequencies a little bit.
And there might be something you missed And it's like, oh, what about this one? And then you can go back and go, oh yeah, actually now and then train your ears.
Yes. And
That's a great idea.
Yeah, you could. There's a lot of ways of doing the same effect of what Soothe does, but I think that's just a plugin that I've and a lot of other people have seen some really good stuff with.
Yeah.
So again, going back to workflow, it's something that you can just go, oh yep, I know Soothe is going to help me with that process, be a bit quicker.
And again, it's knowing why you're going to use it.
Yes. Yeah, vital.
Yeah. So is there any other plugins that you've had your eye on, or even just ones that you enjoy or you like?
Yeah. So I recently was fortunate enough to be sent the plugin bundle from Baby Audio, and
They've got some good stuff, right?
they've got some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
There's probably two that I use quite regularly now. The first one is their delay, which is called Comeback Kid. It's relatively analog flavored, but what I really like about it is the controls in terms of how you can shape the delay. And also there's a little knob on it, which is like a ducking function, which also it side chains the delay back to the dry signal within the plugin without having to.
You can do, like, again, we're talking about these workflow things where you can do that.
But it's already in the plugin, and it's already right there. So I think that's why I find
handy.
myself using it. And apart from the fact that it's a really nice delay and easy to use, it's just that little function is just all that workflow in one space. And normally I would have to, put my delays on bus channels and run them back to the original signals and things like this. Yeah. Now it's done on the chain, and I'm not taking up extra channels.
Awesome,
the other one they do is parallel aggressor, and it's again running parallel in the same chain. So it splits your audio into three different parts. Yep. You've got your dry signal and then two different types of parallel. Yep. One which is more focused on transients and like smack punch type stuff.
So sort of like compression.
It's more compression, with like emphasis on the transients. And then the other side is more like distortion, warmth, saturation. And you can blend. So you can then mix and blend within the plugin, all three, and have it and just whack it on the chain without parallel busing.
That's huge.
Et cetera, et cetera. So
that's huge, because that's what you're talking about there is like a heap of processes in one. Mixed processes.
Yeah, and that's part of the creative phase for me almost, because it's within that plugin and I'm doing some sort of creative shaping of the sound, and that's done in the plugin. So
it's quick and easy too.
Yeah. So
workflow again.
So Baby Audio, definitely they've got 40% off. Black Friday just announced. 40% off. So
I was about to ask that. I was like, that's a Black Friday
that's
deal.
why I mentioned it, because I saw that they'd put that out. So that's really cool. Apart from Isotope that we spoke about, Soothe, Fab Filter.
I mean, that's just like, for me, that's just industry standard.
Honestly, like if you're not on the latest Fab Filter stuff, it's so good.
Q3, incredible.
Multiband, MB.
Yeah, but you can do it all with Q3 because it's dynamic.
You can.
It's so good. Like,
so
it's just
okay. Yeah.
Like,
so if you need one Fab Filter,
I've got MB, and to be honest, I still do use it when I want like real broad bands of things that I want to do. But if I want like, if I'm trying to, I almost don't notch out resonant frequencies with an EQ. I use a dynamic version of it now, because sometimes that resonant isn't always going to be hitting depending on the note. But when it does hit, I want it to notch out. So that's why I think that's really cool that they've got that.
Yeah, and like melodies and stuff and changing octaves, lower octaves are going to push certain frequencies low down, higher octaves, da-da-da-da. So if you've got a dynamic EQ doing that, same as the multiband. I mean, I find myself using the multiband from Fab Filter instead of OTT.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of how everyone puts OTT on everything. Like that's my OTT. I never got
into OTT. Hey,
you need to get onto OTT.
Well, not if I have
true.
Stuff. But the only reason I never got into it was because I think that for what I like the sounds of, it's not real pushed.
You don't need it. You don't have to have it.
It's not real aggressive pushed. Like I find I prefer to use like saturation and stuff to do those kind of things, and then compression and parallel compression. Yeah, sounds like that aggressor plugin would be perfect for what I like to do.
You'd love that, bro.
Sound.
You'd absolutely love that. You're right. Yeah, it's each of these tools has other ways of doing it, and I think, like you said, it's just kind of what you decide to go to and what you like. We're definitely on agreement with Pro Q3. That's FabFilter #1 plugin if I was going to be getting that.
Yeah. If you can't afford the whole bundle, just get Q3.
Q3 is
I use that for all of my subtractive.
Do you know you can sidechain?
Surgical. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I figured that out the other day. Jesus Christ, you need to learn your plugins. But
yeah,
you know, like
I mean, we all do. Like even
so
ones we
things.
know in and out, there's still things. Even like you taught me something when we were collabing with Simpler, just the fade out.
Yeah,
I use that on everything now.
Yeah,
everything.
But it's so I think that's also a point we should make is that. Yes, Black Friday, plugin sales, everybody's talking and raving about plugins. But if you don't know your stock ones, if you don't know how to use the ones that are given, because Ableton, speaking from my own experience, you know the same, like they've got some insane stock stuff. That sounds really good.
11, have you looked at any of the stuff they've got?
I have. Oh, looks really good.
Yeah, I know, like all the spectrum effects,
and then even
the comping.
I was gonna say, it's like,
man.
Finally,
especially for instruments like recording and stuff like that, or even playing melodies and stuff. And
if they'd put freezing of groups, I would have already bought it. I would have already upgraded, and I'd be on Ableton 11 train right now. But seeing as we don't have group
sign
freezing
up for
yet,
beta. Yes, I used to beta test for 10 before it came out, and so I still have an account. So I think I can reactivate it and start doing 11, which I got to look into because there's some cool stuff in there. But I'm pretty sure it was just like an application. Like you send them like, oh, this is me. Like this is what I do. This is how long I've been doing it. This is what what I do. And
maybe we can.
As long as you would definitely be able to get onto the beta.
Oh, let's hope. But
the only thing about beta testing is that it is a little bit annoying because sometimes
it's buggy, isn't it?
Well, yeah, sometimes, but when you open it up every time, it downloads the newest version of the beta if you're on the internet.
Okay.
And so sometimes you'll go in and things will just be different. And you're like, what's going on? Like
they'll move a button or something, yeah.
Yeah, or not so much buttons, but like shortcuts or the way things work and like some of the stuff. And then you have to go into you go into the website. Well, you go into the website and you look at what the updates were, what they've changed, and you go, oh, okay, so that's what that is. And then you've got to go, So it can be a little bit annoying if you're trying to write, but it is cool to be able to have access to some of that stuff before everyone else.
I'm keen. I might get on it.
Exactly, yeah. And then you can just stay on the beta and don't worry about buying 11.
Yeah.
Because they keep doing all the upgrades and things they're working on, they do.
That's the thing. I think I might wait anyway till they've bugged out all the stuff.
That's the other thing.
Same with those new MacBooks that they released. Apparently this new chip in the MacBook's going to be real fast for music production, but none of the plugins none of the plugins are native to it yet, and a lot of the stuff will crash, so we've got to wait until everything sort of upgrades and gets used to it first before. But exciting.
They're
anyway.
meant to be heaps better.
Yeah, exactly. They're meant to be
like
real exciting.
A third better, whereas usually the jumps are like these tiny minuscule jumps of
and my
power.
Mac gets to 100 degrees with 5 tracks on it, so it's like time for an upgrade.
Yeah, that's it. So is there any other plugins that you've loved? To be honest, we bought the subscription to, or we pay for the subscription to Plugin Alliance, which for mixing, like if you want to get into mixing, is just absolutely incredible because you get every plugin they have, and when they bring new ones out, you get it.
Oh wow!
So like they get a new one, and it's across multiple different plugins. Brainworks, unfiltered audio,
that's
like all these. There's like a heap of SSL clones. There's stuff that's
the SSL stuff's so nice.
Yeah,
really
there's like an SPL one. Like there's an emulation of it's called the Townhouse compressor. So there's only one ever made in, I think it's Townhouse was the name of the studio, and basically back in the day they said to SSL, they said, we love like all the compression stuff in your desks and all, and your stuff, but we want to make a specific compressor. Will you sell us the actual hardware components so we can build one for ourselves, and it'll just stay here, it won't go anywhere else? And they were just like, yeah, cool, because it was a big thing. So Townhouse compressor. It's just a great bus compressor that has
awesome.
a whole heap of, and as you would probably know, from emulation plugins that emulate analog old gear, they give a flavor. It's not that they're better at compressing or anything like that, but they give a tone, they give a flavor, sound, they give extra harmonics. There's little extra things that it brings that gives a little bit of difference, or makes it not sound like it's coming from a computer as much as well.
I agree, totally agree. In going off that, another plugin I've had the pleasure of working with is Magnetite by Black Rooster Audio.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about before different tape saturation, emulation.
Yeah, we both
things.
love our saturation.
Yeah, I know. But it's like
J37.
You're right. So that flavor and especially when it's modeled off old gear, like that, you don't get that from your standard stuff. And that's where you can bring in this element of a human recorded feel, or a more, I'm going to say the word homely feel rather than like robotic. It's more kind of natural feeling. And because that's what we've grown up on, these analog stuff. And the great debate is analog sound better than digital sound. I don't know. I just think it's different. It's a different quality.
I don't think it's cleaner.
Certainly not. Well, it depends. What's clean anymore?
What is clean?
Is it too clean, or some stuff like
that's it? But that's clean. What I mean. Like, you can make it sound like a computer and it will be clean, but that's not what I think people enjoy most about music.
Imperfection is perfection.
Yeah, imperfection is important.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but that's one tape emulation. I tend to use that for things like just on the kick a little bit, subtle part of analog, warmth on the low end, basses and things like that. And generally run into the tape emulation first before anything else. So it's like you're running it straight into the analog desk.
Yeah, before you do any EQ or anything.
Before anything else. The other thing that I would suggest, I've spoken about before, is Track Spacer from Waves. It's not actual Waves. It's Wave Factory. And it's another version of like a dynamic EQ but sidechain. So it's a mixing plugin. A lot of people use it for kick and bass, the same as what we're talking about with Kickstart and things like that. But what it does is you essentially send the frequencies from one track, or the signal, and through this Track Spacer plugin, and it analyzes the frequencies, and you can duck those out when it's played of another layer. So we think about kick and bass. Every time you put it on the bass layer, every time the kick comes through, only the frequencies that are the kick are going to be subtracted from the bass. So everything else molds around it.
Yeah.
Around it. But I tend to use it for things like vocals against leads and chords.
Yeah.
So if you've got piano playing.
Huge in pop music. It's a big pop technique.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, it's doing the subtractive EQ, or like the pocket EQ, but dynamically. And I can't speak highly enough of it, really. Honestly, it's magic. And again, you've got to know why you're using it, and do it in subtle amounts, and listen to really what's going on. And so you're not losing too much of the original, but 15%, 20% of this plugin.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It sounds very similar to Neutron, because it's got that masking feature when you can link to, if you put Neutron on two tracks, say a kick and a bass, you can then go into either of those plugins on it and say, all right, I want to do see what's masking from this other, other one. So it has all the channels then, so you can put that in. And then when they're playing, you'll see the frequencies in the spectrum light up, and then you can go, oh, cool. So that's masking around here. So I want the kick to come through here. So I'm just gonna
duck.
Duck. And you can sidechain as well. You can dynamic
Yeah,
sidechain.
to
as
be
well.
honest, I haven't had much experience using Neutron like
Yeah.
that, but I believe you. I'm sure it is.
But it sounds like the one you're talking about sort of does that for you. This shows you what's masking, and then you've got to go and do it.
Yeah, no, this one
Whereas
does
this
it.
one sort of just does it,
And it's just
Again,
a big knob.
workflow,
Yeah, it's just the big knob. You twist it. It's like dry, wet, and it's like you can, as you turn it up, you hear the frequency disappearing behind and popping out. So it's easy to dial in. Yeah. But that's it. That's my plug-in recommendations.
Yeah. We could sit here forever. And
I could talk about gear all day.
Yeah, but all right, let's move on because there's something that I want to talk about with you.
Yeah,
that
cool.
It's very interesting to me that we're really similar in a lot of things. We've
100%.
both done jazz music growing up and stuff like that, and orchestras and classically trained and all that kind of stuff. We've both studied sport and exercise science at uni, so we've done that kind of thing. We both love our health and fitness sort of stuff as well. We both love dance music and similar kind of vibes of stuff. And like there's often times where you'll show me a track and I'll go, dude, that's awesome. I think it was Tornado.
Tornado. Yeah.
You showed us that and I was like, dude, that's sick. And then I hit you up to figure out what it was again later on. I was like, what was that track called? But we've got a big difference of opinion in, I don't know if I would call it conspiracy theories, but, just I'm, I suppose, very trusting of, I suppose we could say, authority. And you're a little bit the opposite of that, like, like the lockdowns and things and stuff. So I'm interested to find out, not specifically about things and, we're not going to get into a debate about specific topics and things, but why is that you have that skeptical nature of things?
Yeah.
Do you know why that is?
Yeah. I mean, partly that's me. I've always been interested in the why about stuff.
Yeah. I am too.
And I know you are. And I think that's why this is interesting. And this is why, and we're seeing a lot of this at the moment. We're seeing and I'll use this as an example, like we're not like this, but you see like good friends falling out from differences of opinion over stuff that's really not like that important. I think where I sort of view everything is that I'm very trusting and I always look for the best in people, right? So I do that, but on the other side, I have a certain level of skepticism for stuff, but only when things don't add up. Now, there's like a lot to be said about misinformation, and I say that in inverted commas, misinformation, because, you never know what you can believe anymore. Like,
it's true.
There's proven instances of all sides of people and things and whatever not being true when things are said that they're true, right? And over the course of history, we've learned in hindsight about a lot of events that seemed one way and then concurrently another way. Yeah. Now, like, I know that, like, without delving into details and all this kind of stuff, we think and we like to label stuff as conspiracies, or, we tend to think of, if you're questioning something, not necessarily questioning something, if you come and say, no, this is what's going on, like, it's all da-da-da, it's all screwed up, and, like, the truth is generally somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So for me, I'm all about, like, the truth and sort of honesty, and I know you are too, and it's like, that's where things can get messy, because one person will hear something that they've heard, and because of the way they've been conditioned or brought up, or the circles that they're listening in, they tend to be believing or leaning that certain way, or they might have had something impact them, or then some person, a politician may have said something against something that they're really strong on, and then instantly, they're against that person or whatever. I have always trusted my gut instinct with stuff. And if I feel like something's not quite right, then I'll generally tend to sort of stay away, not necessarily stay away from it, but treat it with a little bit of distance. Yeah. So if we're going to give this lockdowns COVID example,
Yep.
I'm very, very skeptical of the whole thing from the beginning, as you're aware.
And as you know, I'm very the opposite.
Yeah. And I get that. And like, on one hand, I'm not somebody that's like, you know, it's all fake, everybody's evil and out to get us, because that's going too far. Like that's going too far the other way.
It exists. It is a thing.
Yeah. Like there's...
But I think we're specifically for this, you're like, well, is our response to it warranted? I think that's where you come from.
Yes and no. And
is
I'm
there
a bit bigger than that. But
and is there an agenda behind the response?
Yes. So, like, you know, I'll go out on the record and say, like, it's pretty clear to me personally, again, this is just my opinion, that there is a big agenda going on. Mm-hmm. Whether it's involving all of the aspects that everybody's saying it is probably not true. Because as we said, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Yeah. It doesn't mean that I support Trump, support Biden, support lockdowns, don't support vaccinations, this, that, and the other. I'm for common sense and open transparency. Yeah. Generally, from the state of how everything's been going, open discussion and hearing the voices and opinions and questioning things over our entire lifetimes has gotten us through situations and gotten us to deal with stuff.
And to understand things.
Exactly. So, you know, I might not understand something fully. You might not understand. By chatting, we understand each other's point of view and we can then work out the best way of action. But if I'm being told that I'm not allowed to say anything, but you are, and I will feel like I'm being oppressed, or like I'm not having my voice heard. And why can't I say that is the right? It's sort of like, well, if I'm saying this, is what's wrong with me saying that? Now, I also see the point of if you've got someone coming out and saying you should all do this, and against common sense, it seems like that's not the right thing to do, then people might think, oh, that person is endangering or they're spreading false information that could be harmful. But that's up to the individual to be able to take that piece of information and judge it against every other piece of information and make their mind up for themselves, right? Yeah. Not for a big tech monopoly or for someone to say, no, you can't say that. What we say is the way to go, is the way to go, right? Now, we've seen in the last 12 months or less that things that appeared one way 6 months ago have been backflipped, and backflipped quite a few times. There's many, many holes in a lot of things that we've been told or heard in relation to everything, not just coronavirus, whatever. So to me, if I'm being laid a story out with a whole lot of holes in it, I go, hang on, that doesn't make sense. Back in February, March, I was like, shit, there's a virus. This is bad. Like, you know, let's be safe. Like, let's worry about this. And then the more that I see the holes, and then the people that are identifying the holes speaking up and then being demonized and silenced, only because it doesn't match up to what they're telling you, that raises my alarm bells a little. Yeah. It doesn't mean that I go, it's fake, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. But it makes me go, oh, you know, so why can't we talk about that? What's wrong with discussing the other side of things? What happens if lockdowns weren't the best idea? What other alternatives are there, and why can't we talk about that? Now, if they have open discussions on, you know, and as we're seeing at the moment with various different media organizations and things like that, if we're having a transparent, both sides of the argument type of story, most people are going to get a balanced view, be able to make up their mind, and can tell the stuff that doesn't make sense to the other stuff. But if anything that's questioning what's going on is being taken away from you, you're only going to hear the stuff that they want you to hear. Yeah. Now, some of that might be correct. Some of it might not be. But what I'm noticing is the intent behind what's going on. Now, if I was a leader of a country or whatever, and I saw that my people were in a state of fear for something, whether it be a virus or something, there's a few things that I would do different to the way that our politicians and media and governing bodies have gone about the way that they're doing things. Because I come from a place of love, understanding, trying to work together, listen, and come up with the best strategy. It doesn't seem like that was the way things have been done. And it doesn't seem like that's going to continue from the way that we've seen stuff happen.
My question for that, just that specific thing, is that leadership and being a good leader doesn't always mean choosing the most popular thing.
Very true.
Sometimes you have to make the harsh and the hard decision. And that's why I feel like, you look at Melbourne as a great example. They had to go into lockdown, or they did go into lockdown, and they've got rid of it now. And now they're coming out the other side. And I think that's amazing. Like, hats off to Melbourne and the whole state to getting through that and coming out the other side. And now they've got this, they've beaten it. And then you look to them like, don't want to alienate anyone from America, but you look at their leaders, and a lot of those places, they didn't make that tough decision to do that. And you've still got, so many people, getting this virus. This is without getting into all the tests and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? Like, it's leadership sometimes is about making the hard decision that's not the popular decision for the greater good.
Yeah, and I totally respect that, because that needs to happen for some people. That's right. And even if it's not popular, it needs to happen because they have the information, or they have the best possible knowledge that they could possibly have, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, without getting into details, because I slightly disagree with some of those things, but that's different. That's different, and we could be here for hours. But the principle of doing greater good, right? And we saw this
double-edged
do no harm. Like, it's in the health aspect. It's all about our health, right? That's what we're being pushed at. It's all about our health, right? Now, if we generally look about the welfare of the population from January to possibly January next year, and across the board, wellness in all areas and health in all areas, have we done a good job? And I'm not going to say, in my opinion, I'm not asking for yours. I'm just thinking that's a question we should be thinking about. Is it really about our health? I agree with you that, yes, okay, Melbourne seemed to be stricter. We've seen other places in the world without strict lockdowns and have still eradicated this supposed virus. Now, places in Europe and stuff, I'd have to give you an exact country.
I haven't, but we're not going into specifics.
But without,
so we don't have a young Jamie to
we don't have a fact checker.
Or anything,
if that's wrong, I apologize. But
it's fine.
The way that we've seen the enforcement and the lack of what I would call like empathy for human feeling and greater community and bringing everyone together seems to have gone out the window for seemingly something that is less like it's less of an impact on us. For example, closing down the economy and locking everyone away, our suicide rates have gone up. Okay, now
I would question that, but that's fine because I've seen a lot of research that has actually said that that's not actually the case. There's definitely domestic violence is definitely something that's gone up.
Okay, well then let's use that for an example.
Yeah, that's definitely something that has definitely gone up.
So if we agree on that, for example, don't worry about the specifics. If it has or it hasn't, these are other issues that we need to be aware of putting everyone in the same space. Mm-hmm. Also, lack of contact with family, people losing contact with loved ones that are supposedly dying. I have family overseas. I can't see my family that I was supposed to see. There's a lot of people in the same boats.
Definitely.
And
And that's a huge impact on mental
like
health.
that,
I get that. Yeah,
like that
definitely.
health versus at the moment in Adelaide, they're doing a complete border lockdown for two families who have symptoms, and to me, because of the way that everything else is running in the world and every other part of the world, we're at a point where everyone seems to think that it's just eradicate this thing at all costs.
Yeah.
And at all costs is not for your health and for the greater good and for, trying to move forward past this. Now, to me, again, my opinion, it all neatly wraps up in the same thing that key people are talking about all over the world. And it very, very suspiciously lines up with all of these conflict of interest. Now, if
I'll
anybody...
agree with that. I will definitely agree with that. Like,
Okay, so...
like taking it from a perspective of looking at...
If we're looking and go, okay, why do these
what
people...
has happened before in the past?
What's happened before? Why do you think they're doing it, and what can they gain out of it? What they're going to lose out of it? If we lay those, what's the positives and negatives, or what are we going to get out of it? It's a very clear connection and path between a few certain people that are benefiting from this.
Yeah.
They're the same people that are supposedly talking about, they're the same people that are dictating how we respond to this situation. They're also the same people promising a new normal. They're also the same people promising Agenda 2030 and our zero emissions and our great reset. Now, all of these are all conveniently under the same tactic and umbrella that these people want to move forward. Without getting into details and trying to fact check everything, that's just how I view it. And I know that I'm not the only one.
I totally get that. Like, I totally understand how that overarching aspect, and I am skeptical about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, if I can just,
please.
give
I need
my
it.
perspective is that, for me, I was at uni for a long time. I was there for 6-7 years on and off doing stuff, lived on college for 6 years, grew up around, spent years and years with people who I know and I trust, who are now experts in these things.
Yeah.
And I look to them and I ask them questions about things. And the thing that I like, it's interesting what you said about common sense, because, you're like, these things don't add up when you look at it from a common sense perspective. But the problem with that is that, it might seem like a common sense thing because you're looking at it from this perspective. But these experts and stuff have learned, and the reason I trust a lot of experts is because I know these people and I can ask people who I know and I trust and who I know
and
don't
their
have ties
intention. They
to
want
things.
to try and do the right thing.
And I trust them, basically. But the thing is that these people, like, sometimes, and this is the same with health and stuff, you talk to someone and they say, but this is like this and this, and you're like, well, yeah, but you're missing this basic, like the basics. These experts have learnt the basics, and then they've learnt all the steps along the way to the complex thing. If you're someone looking at it from a lay person who hasn't learnt the basics from the ground up, you're looking at it from a common sense perspective, but maybe you don't know something that's a basic principle, and that basic principle changes everything.
Yeah.
And it totally debunks your theory. And it's just because, common sense might say this, but that's because you don't have all the information. You don't know this thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why when people sort of talk about, these, when we, as humans, we have to generalize things to have discussions about things, because we can't talk about individual cases. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's always outliers, genetics and all that kind of stuff. But we have to generalize things. And that's kind of the problem, because everything is nuanced. Everything is actually complicated.
Yeah.
Like, we generalize things so that we can talk about them in a broad spectrum. But when you get down to the nitty gritty and the really detailed things, it's very nuanced. It's very complicated. It's very individual on these, things.
Yeah.
So I think, I understand that perspective of looking at it from a common sense perspective, but I feel like, people don't know some of the basic things that would then, because you're trying to,
That would then,
you're
shine
looking
light
at
on it.
You're looking at a complicated thing without having all the basic knowledge of things before. And that's why, like, when people, and when I've talked to people like yourself and like other people who have this view of things, I go in from a perspective of, well, I get that, but have you thought about this? Because it's something that I know, that maybe you don't know, and maybe you do know that, and you've got a reason why, and you've got an explanation that you've thought about and pondered on. But a lot of the times, there's things that people
they don't think. They jump to conclusions.
They jump to conclusions and they look at it from their perspective, but it's like, oh yeah, but you don't know this bit. And this bit changes everything.
And the way the algorithm works on social is that it'll feed you 100%. The things that you want to see.
Yeah. And they feed you, like, have you seen The Social Dilemma?
I haven't watched it.
You have to watch it.
Everyone's been telling me to watch it, and I refuse to watch it because everyone tells you to watch it.
No, you have to watch it because it really enlightens the thing on like, they actually found, so they will do it. I'll just give you a little brief idea of it, but when they initially started the algorithm, the AI, it is an AI.
Yeah, it learns you.
The concept that they wanted, well, we want to keep people on the platform.
Yeah.
We want to keep
personalize it, right?
We want to keep them here because then we can sell ads.
Yeah.
And we can make more money because people are paying attention and seeing them. So they started it off with, like, good intentions. We just want to know what people like so they stay on longer and show them things that they would like. Great intention. But the underlying thing was that they wanted to keep people on the platform. So the algorithm started learning and getting smarter. Mm-hmm. And it realized that conspiracy theories keep people on the platform. You keep watching. Because it's like interesting because it's like you're finding out something that no one else knows. It's this thing that the general population or the accepted thing, it's different to that. So it's like, oh, I'm getting let in on some secret that no one knows. And so it plays to that, like, that thing of keeping you on. And I don't know, like, I don't see a lot of conspiracy stuff on my feed because I'm not into that. Like, it's not something that I watch and get sucked into because then I go, if I do see something, I go and do research and message friends who are who know things in these areas and they're like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense if you look at it from that perspective, but what about this? Like, and then so I don't see a lot of that stuff. I imagine you would probably see a lot of that stuff.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't. And see, this is where we've got to be careful about what we're labeling as conspiracy.
Yeah,
because
I understand. Yeah. It's a very broad term.
Because if we're talking about, like, really what we're talking about in this day and age is anybody that's questioning something or saying something alternative to what the official story is, whether it's a government story or not, like whether that's the way it is or not. It's just like someone who's speaking against that is labeled conspiracy. And it's usually a conspiracy is something
it's a generalized term.
Yeah, it's generalized.
It's definitely, nuanced. Like, we could talk about specific things and it would be it would be different. There'll be some things that we talk about where I go, no, I agree with that. And I wouldn't think of it as a conspiracy, but then other people would.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it comes down to... see, I should have been careful about the common sense word because, you're right. Because common sense is all about your perspective and it seems common to you, but common sense isn't so common to other people. Now, the things that I see... For instance, on let's just say use the US election as an example. Yep. We've got a lot of people that have clearly chosen a side, whether that's influenced by mainstream or not. They've chosen a side.
Yeah. I mean, that's American politics in a nutshell.
Well,
they've chosen sides.
Yes,
yeah.
and
it started a while ago.
It's not helped by the ones that are seeking to benefit. So, for example, in the Democratic Party, it's paid a lot of money to celebrities, big tech, to support their campaign, and it's not hidden knowledge that and you can see it on any major news network. It's all bashing Trump. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter, because there's a lot of things that Trump says I don't agree with. And, you know, on the record, I don't support Biden either. So I don't support either of them.
I mean, it doesn't really matter for us because
Exactly,
it's not our country. Like, we don't really matter when it comes to that. But
I've never seen any mainstream thing bashing Biden the same way they bash Trump, for example. So I think that in terms of the
Fox News, though.
Fox is obviously more it's on Trump's side. So you've got, and you see it in the UK, there's certain papers and things that are left or right. Like it's normal. But when you've got big tech like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, where all of the traffic is and what I would call culture is living, the fact checkers or, you know, how these tech monopolies are then having control over society, both being influenced, everybody knows it's influenced by money.
Yep.
If we follow the money and you actually look at who is funding what and why they might do these things, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've seen all of Hollywood supporting the Democrats. You don't see any Hollywood celebrities supporting Trump unless they get shut down or whatever. Everyone supports Biden. Go vote. Let's change. Let's get rid of the orange orangutan and let's, you know, move on to a la-da-da-da-da. Now, why? Well, Hollywood is run and based on the same people that run the careers that they have. It's based. So if they don't comply, they're under pressure that they lose their standing. Yeah. Now, we have that all over the world. It's all hierarchical, right? So going back to your point about someone being of good intention, someone with, you know, like you and I might go to uni, we've got big dreams of trying to change the world, do the good things. Like we learn all about the stuff at uni, mind you, which is all many years out of date by the time
things
you learn
that we learned at uni now are
many
years
out of date. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Calories in and calories out.
And, you know,
maybe not so
everyone
much.
Talks about school and how nothing you learn at school has ever prepared us for the real world.
Yeah.
We think about these things and you think about the why. And it goes back to our whole conversation. If I was starting something, why would I do it? Or why would I want to make something gain? Now, that's going to be different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we know that in the majority of circumstances at the top, it's fueled by money.
Yep.
Sadly,
I would definitely agree with that.
So if we follow that and we follow the political influence and we follow who's going to gain, like to me, whether coronavirus is real or not doesn't matter to me, but it matters to Bill Gates big time because he makes 20-1 returns on vaccinations. So it's in his best interest that the world gets a vaccination because he's going to make a shit ton of money on it. Now, whether or not he's a bad person, I'll leave that to another discussion.
Yeah.
But things like that on their own, I think we call it, you know, maybe circumstantial evidence. But if you add up all these different points and you lay the blueprint out in front of you, there's a lot of questions. For stuff, see, for example, the flu, normal flu, we all have a fairly basic understanding that this thing goes around. It changes year to year. There's a flu vaccine if you want one. It's on your own risk. Your health is yours to look after. Yeah. And, you know, if you're sick, you generally sort of stay away from people. That's how things work, right?
Yeah.
We've got this understanding. Now, if there was conflicting stories about this flu that goes around each year. Some saying, "Oh, you have to get this because influenza kills lots of people every year. You have to wear a mask. Or you have to stay in your homes. You have to, you know, get a vaccine. You have to whatever, because influenza kills many, many people. Cancer kills many, many people.
Yeah.
Obesity, many, many people. Smoking, da. You know, we've got a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
Why then is the response so disproportionate and so many holes in the same?
I have the answer to that for you from a health perspective.
Okay, no. Sorry, yes, you're right. And like that's more an open-ended question because that's diving into details. And yes, you know, coronavirus is different to the flu.
Like we said, there's problems with with generalizing things because there's
Yes.
specific details.
So that's why that's why I don't want to necessarily use the flu as an example, but that's why I listed all of these other things of other potentially massive causes of death and disease in our population. Now, on its own, this response to the virus without this conflict of interest, without this political driving, without the holes in the stories, without all the police brutality, the ridiculousness that's going on, these changing of rules and borders and standing up and dancing and da-da-da-da-da. If on the surface of it, if in general conversation, if everybody's going, yeah, this makes sense, then cool. But we've got so many people questioning this. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So as I said to you earlier, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, whereby conspiracy theorists, in commas and quotes and whatever, probably are running wild with the thing to try and over-exaggerate. And then there's people that get really worked up about it, and they will create their own pieces of content, and they'll, start. And
they'll benefit, like you said.
Exactly, and they benefit from it, and they'll start turning into their audience, and et cetera, et cetera. So you've got to, every time I find out a piece of information or get an opinion, I will counterbalance it with why they might be saying it and where they might be coming from with why they're saying it. Yeah. If it's a news company, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt because they're reading off a script, but they're the higher people
and
in that.
And they want clicks.
They want clicks. They want
people,
clickbait, et cetera, et cetera. That's why it's always cases for the last 6 months, not anything positive. It's always fear driven.
It's always fear driven. Definitely.
And like you agree with this, there's a lot of people that agree with this. So, but why is it like that? And why are we having to deal with it like this in this way? Why can't we? These are all open-ended questions. These are like, it's just sort of, these are the things that I think about. Then I come back and I go, the government has our best interests at heart. We should trust, like, they're experts. They've been to university. I haven't. They know what they're talking about. I don't. But then you get another supposed expert who's also studied for years and years and years.
Says something else.
Who says something completely different. But then the media will say, oh, these people are da-da-da-da-da. And then you go, why are they telling them to shut up? They're a doctor as well. So why can't they have just as much of a stage? They may be wrong.
Yeah.
They may be wrong. And I'm not saying they're right.
Scientific consensus,
but why,
right?
But science is about battling and working out what's new and coming up with these conflicting things. So why silence one side?
I think it's just about like not getting the wrong message out. If the general consensus from scientists is this, because this many people think this, because they've looked into it and done the research, and only a few are saying this, well, it's like, well, which do we choose?
Who has the right to choose, though?
Yeah,
is it the
doesn't
people?
The general consensus?
But shouldn't it come back on the individual for your health? For example, like health freedoms, right? For example, with vaccinations, we all have health freedoms. We have our democracy that we've built and people have died for. Many generations have died to fight for this level of democracy.
100%.
Like, I totally understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. I just mean
And I totally understand what you're saying. And this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I knew we could have a civilized discussion about it and flush out a heap of points about it.
Yeah, because, I don't care. People can call me what they want. I'm quite vocal about how I feel about a lot of this stuff. And like, I think rightly so, I should be allowed to question.
Yeah, 100%.
As soon as I start saying, nah, you're wrong, that's the problem. Or you can't say your opinion.
That's why I always come into the conversation as, well, yeah, but have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't know this, or maybe you do,
Exactly. But are we questioning Dan Andrews in that way? But who does? Apparently his advisors do, or his team. But who's on his team? The same people that benefit from the same things he benefits from. Do you see what I'm going with this?
Yeah, I understand your whole like the whole vibe.
So most of the population, to summarize quickly, most of the population, like you and I, have really good intentions. We want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
We want to listen to the people who we think have our best interests. We want to get this thing the hell over with and work towards being better, happier, positive, everything else.
Yeah, back
right?
to some kind of normalcy.
Yeah, right. So everyone's in the same boat. I think we'll see this play out very interestingly over the next year or so, up to 2030. I think it's going to be a big battle between these two sides of opinion, and we're going to really see this flushing out of, well, we're going to get to the bottom of the truth no matter which way it is. And for me, as you've just alluded to, having civilized conversations whereby we're not jumping on Facebook and saying all Trump supporters are dickheads and I'm going to unfriend everyone that's a Trump supporter. Like, that's childish.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
these
about
people we're all the same. We're all human beings. We all want the same thing. We're all part of this. And having empathy and understanding for someone else who is clearly angry about something's going on. It's more about, let's work together. Let's find out where we can get the best middle ground and keep the civilized debate alive.
100%, yeah.
That's kind of where I'll leave it.
I really like something when I was speaking to my friend who's a virologist, who's done his PhD and all stuff, and he's like so into this stuff, like he's
Cool.
getting into the research.
It's
and all that
awesome
kind of
because he'd
stuff.
love it because it's right up his alley.
Yeah. Oh, he was like, because he was doing his PhD, and he was like,
Yeah.
just we've been like talking about it amongst ourselves and all this stuff. I said like, so what is it? And he said like, look, dude, like, he's like, we're going to be looking through the data for years to come to find out what the truth was. But he said, basically, we're running thousands of imperfect experiments all over the world because there's so many variables. Like, usually when you do an experiment, you try and control everything and only have one variable.
You need a control and one
so that you can figure out what the difference is. But he's like, we're doing thousands of experiments all over the world that are imperfect, and it's going to take years and years for us to get through the data and actually figure out what the truth was at the end. So I think, you know, that's a thing. Like,
he's right. He's 100% right. And it's about like, it's hindsight is the most powerful thing, sadly.
Yeah.
Looking back, we'll be able to discover where these things went wrong. All I'm making my voice heard about is the fact that there's a few people that seem to be capitalizing on the situation.
Yep.
Whether the situation was planned at their pre-pandemic planning a few years ago, and in my opinion, as I've said, it's pandemic.
Yep.
But, you know, so...
Or is it just coincidence that they're just taking advantage of something that's happened? Because,
well, okay,
you know, what do they say in, like, you know, in times of crisis, you take advantage of the things that you can. Like,
yeah, and
it's something like that.
You know, opportunists will strike. It's too fishy that the same people that are involved now are the ones who practiced this in a controlled environment a few years ago, and the ones that have been openly talking about reduction of population in using vaccines, have been openly talking about the fact that there's a pandemic arriving in Trump's presidency, and something's going to go down in the last year of his presidency. They all talk about 2020. It is
very coincidental. I will give you that. It's very coincidental.
And, okay,
but in the same thing, like, virologists have been saying for like 20 years that there's going to be a pandemic.
Yes.
They've been saying that from a scientific point of view.
For
they're
years.
Like, there's these new viruses that come up, and our bodies don't have vaccines.
So if you're right. You're 100% right. So if you're
they've known that for ages.
Yes. Okay. This is my next point, though. If you're then thinking, how do we capitalize on a world situation to make change? How do we get everyone to believe in something that we're saying? How do we get some people to follow a narrative without question? Virus.
Yeah.
Very, very easy. Unknown, hidden threat. It's, as you said, it's been spoken about.
Yeah.
So when they planned a worldwide response to a pandemic and speak about when it's happening, and then it does happen, we go, not saying I'm like, yep, sold, that's what happened.
Yeah.
You planned it, you little, but my eyebrows raise. And then I take a little bit of skepticalness looking at other things. And then a month later, my eyebrows raise again and go, hang on, that matches what I've seen here.
Yeah.
And then the same thing as we were talking about before, things pop up and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could go around in circles with this.
Wouldn't it be so great to just be in that inner circle though of these people and actually be in the room a bit and actually hear them if it was a thing that they planned, like to be in there and go, oh wow.
I don't think we'd want to be
or
honest.
if
I think
it's
it'd be
not,
quite scary.
or if it's not, like, you know what I mean, like to know. And that's the whole thing, is that we don't know.
We don't know, but we do know some things. We do know that the truth isn't everything we see and hear.
Yeah.
And we do know that we need to have freedom of speech and discussion and our democracy to keep things the way we want them.
Yeah.
So as soon as we see things impeaching on that, that's when we have an issue.
Yep. I'll agree with that.
I believe we have that issue big time right now, personally.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like for example, with censorship, if it's got nothing to do with coronavirus, the fact that you can't post anything to do with, like the Save the Children thing, or you can't post some specific hashtag or something that completely censors it is ridiculous. Now,
would you say the same thing about like racist posts and things that are like that we accept as not being a cultural social norm?
Yes.
So how would you? So
I'm being careful here, but I think it's okay for people to say what they want.
I would agree.
Because
but
as soon as you stop one,
them.
As soon as you stop one thing, you have to stop everything. So I'm all for the fact that you shouldn't be saying these things and they're harmful to people, 100%. But there's a line, and we're navigating this line very, very finely over these times and figuring out how it works, because it's unprecedented. We don't know what it's like to have a company ruling our social networks. It's ruling how we communicate and what we're into.
You need to watch The Social Dilemma.
I don't think I will.
This is all about.
It's going to make me upset. It's probably going to make me upset.
No, but it's actually quite at the end. They talk about ways. There's a group of people who are working on ways where they can actually make it better. But one thing I want to say about opinions is that, so many people go, well, that's my opinion, and that's it. And they think that that's the end of a conversation.
No, it's not.
No, you can have an opinion, but we can also question and criticize your opinion.
Yes.
Like, everyone says opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. Yeah, but if your opinion's shitty, I have the right to question your opinion. Saying that's my opinion is not the end of the conversation. That's not the end of the conversation. I can question your opinion and I can criticize your opinion, and then we can sit there and have a dialogue. People who say, well, that's my opinion.
It usually means that, apart from the fact that I was saying it just to clarify that I'm not generalizing.
And I understand that. Yeah, but we've gone backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And I've questioned your opinion, and we've had a dialogue amongst it, which is healthy.
That's it. You need to be able to back down and be like, I might be wrong here. And that's where I was going with how people are calling out their friends and having lengthy arguments over stuff that really doesn't matter. And that's really heartbreaking to see, that the fact that, the culture is being driven this way I'm not going to say it, in a way that's been done from the media or from this fear-driven tactic. And it's pushing everyone into fear. It's pushing everyone into self-protect mode. And that's closing off the avenues to love, understanding, connection. On the flip side, on a more positive note, I also think that this pandemic has brought everybody closer together. Yeah. Because it's
realized the value of human connection.
Yes, 100%. And it's shown how important, or how, maybe caught up we were in our previous lives, or how
the things that didn't actually matter.
Some people have gone the other way and are really deep into things that don't matter, maybe myself included. But, there's I think that there's a lot of genuinely similar people, or in times of crisis, people band together. And I think I have a lot of hope for humanity as a whole in terms of overcoming.
Same. I mean, we've always overcome any
things.
challenge that we've had as a,
Unless you're a dinosaur.
well, but that's not humans.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
right.
yeah, I just wanted to finish on one thing. Like, I always talk about when I don't talk about things as debates or
Yeah, because
anything
debate
like that.
feels at each other.
we're trying to get our point to be winning.
Yeah,
I always think of them as discussions or conversations.
100%.
So I think if people can get away from thinking that it's a debate where I have to win, it's not about winning. It's about understanding.
Well,
And I think
that's it, and I think that's where we're both coming from on this. Is
exactly.
like,
And that's why I wanted to have this discussion with you, because to show people that we have very different opinions on these things.
yeah, we do.
But we can have a discussion about it,
Yeah,
and we
but,
can give our points
like,
of view.
You believing something doesn't dictate the type of person you are.
Yes, exactly.
Even if you believed in the KKK and Hitler and la da 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 da,
Which I don't.
Okay,
Let's just
yes.
for the record, but I don't.
But if you follow things that are a little bit left of center, it's not up to me to debate that. If I choose that you're not the type of person that I want to hang out with, so be it. But not to bring you down. I have a lot of respect for you as a person, regardless of what your beliefs are.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that's what we need to bring to our lives. And anybody that listens to this or whatever.
And if you're still listening,
If you're still here,
big
well
ups
done.
to you,
Well
because we've
Yeah.
gone around in circles and done so much stuff. But I think it's a
they
big
need
thing to like. People need to. It's not a me versus you. It's we're all humans. We're all trying to get through this thing, and we're all trying to figure it out. We don't all have all the information, regardless of
Yeah.
how knowledgeable you are on
Or
a
you
topic.
think you are, yeah.
Or you think you are,
Yeah.
or the people you know, or the things you've read. You don't have all the information. And so I always like to think, well, maybe they know something I don't know at any time
Yeah.
with anyone I meet. Maybe they know something I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthy way to think about things.
Got it. 100%.
All right, let's finish it up here. So go check out all Art Supply stuff.
Thank you. Yes.
His music and stuff. Where can we find you? Give everyone-
Well, most of my helpful stuff, music production wise, is either on Instagram or YouTube, /Art Supplies Music, all one word. You'll be able to find that. No dramas.
Do you have a website that links to everything?
I do, yeah.
I feel like you do. So what's the website?
Artsuppliesmusic.com.
Artsuppliesmusic.com. Go
Easy.
there and you'll
Yeah.
have all the links.
And
to
it'll be
everything.
ready, yeah. And then stream my music. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you stuck around this long, you're a legend.
Well done.
And yeah, I think we're going to do a few more of these with you. We were talking in the break about doing. I think I'm going to have some regular guests where we just talk about things. People who I know I can have just good conversations with.
Talk forever about stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know how long we've been going, but
No.
we could probably go for way.
I know. We could go for ages, and I love being on, so thanks for having us.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks,
see you
bro.
next time, bro.
All right. Laters.
See you guys.
Bye.